Say hello, Justin.
Good morning, tokers and tokettes. Welcome back to In the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio. We are absolutely having a great day. We're very stoked to talk to Thomas Popke of Oh-Tera Organics with us today. They just launched a brand new line. We're really excited to help bring it to you guys and let them explain what's going on and why we should be using this product. We've had Thomas on the show before. Great guest. So, dude, I'm actually really excited for today's show. Even the last time we had Gianna, I learned a lot, which is something that I always try to do, is learn something when we do these shows, right? So you back then you kind of hinted about this project coming, right? And we kind of discussed it really briefly. And I know you've been working on it for a while. So why don't you introduce yourself, Tom, and let everybody know about Oh-Tera now, right?
You got it. So Thomas Popke from Oh-Tera Organics. Everybody knows me from Opia Farm or Opia Farm Genetics. But so this is a nutrient line that we've been working on since I was literally in high school biology class. It's been ever changing. And so I've, used it essentially my whole entire life of propagating any plant. But I never really brought it too much to the market. Every spring I'd kind of like make extra batches, share with everybody. And that was all she wrote. But the reality is the reason why I didn't bring it to open market was because it's how I successfully grow some of the best cannabis I come across. So I didn't want to share my secret. But enough of it of kind of going, well, you know what, really, honestly, it's so simple and it works so well that if the people had like a 3-part series of Fish It, Oh-Tera, and Essence of the Sea, or any combination of some of our organic compounds, you're going to essentially grow the best of anything you're growing.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
go ahead.
I was going to say, you were saying you've been working on this for a long time. A lot of growers, they tend to, master their technique. What's unique about you, and I just want to touch base with what you guys are doing with Opia Farms, is that you've been working with a lot of collaborations, which has helped you really develop this project even better, right? Refine it.
Most certainly. So we have collaborations with so many co-op growers through genetics, working with vegetable, heirloom, and cannabis genetics. So it's easier to collaborate with good people, other local farmers, kind of all throughout the country. But I really try to work with a lot of California, Maine, Colorado, Oregon, the standard states that really have been working hard. And as the other states' legislation changes, so they get on board, like here, we got another state. Of course, there's those guerrilla growers that are the best of the best. I can name every state has some elite underground growers, but until we can recognize them legally so they're not in trouble for what they do, we kind of have to hush it. So we partner with the obvious ones that can be like myself, first and foremost, just this is what we do. And everything's legal. So it's going to get bigger, and the more people we get on board in every facet, the stronger of a collaboration we'll have. That's actually why I said, okay, I'm going to release Oh-Tera. It is special. I've worked on it a while. It's really dialed in. I collaborating with enough people that I give that to them, and they've used it for years now. They've literally just found the focal point to go, you should share it with other people. And so I went, okay, I don't want to try to make a big company that's just trying to make a vast amount of money, but maybe a nice co-op collaboration. So actually Oh-Tera is a collaboration of 4 or 5 people essentially now getting this up and going. It will be an employee-owned company. So employees, every person that works for us, whether it's somebody bottling, labeling, janitorial, custodial, doesn't matter what you do, there'll be a piece of it for you. So we're not building it at expensive. I mean, this bottle right here, it's a 10-ounce bottle. It's $25 retail. I'm not going to shoot out what other people charge for the same quantity or similarity, but I'm like 10% of what they cost. So I'm not trying to make a lot of money. Actually, the bottling and stuff that we're using is such top quality. It's costing me a lot where I wanted to cheap out. I wanted to go, okay, the plastic bottle saves me money, and maybe I could pass that on to somebody. Mm-hmm. Well, this combination, this metal cap and this metal bottle, we're actually going to recycle it. I don't know exactly how the program will work, but it's going to be like, we'll send you a self-addressed envelope. You save up at least 4 or 5 bottles after it. You send them into us. We're going to give you a special gift, a thank you. We're going to pay for the shipping because we want to recycle it. We want to reuse it. These are temporary logos. The manufacturing company for the bottles is going to be able to engrave or print them. So it's just going to be, so we receive the bottles, sanitize them, refresh them, and out back they go. So we're trying to really do this green and do it right. Right now we have formula P1823, which is a green growth formula. It has so many microbials in it that it's going to activate a garden or a plant, indoor plant, any ecosystem that it's contained in. It's going to activate it in a way similar to the other people, but I'm using so many mycorrhizal fungi and so many different microbials from leaf and sand that it's going to activate it like as if you just went out and bought a bottle from everybody. So why buy a bottle from everybody when you just buy one and at a much cheaper price? So I'm not trying to crap on anybody. I'm actually trying to still say, hey, everybody should just use what you're using, but just give me a shot. It's worth it, and at a very low cost to boot. So this is a growth formula. Now we're in research and development. We're working very hard. We have a bloom formula that I've worked on, but I'm not ready to pop it to market because I want to see the data, because I feel like we can improve it and make it better. So right now, cannabis outdoors, you're in, veg stage. So it's a good time. So we're kind of pumping it out there in the veggie gardens. This 1823 formula is perfect for virtually any plant. Only do you find in cannabis, because cannabis doesn't like a lot of nitrogen, and because this direct formula is for growth, it has a lot of nitrogen in it, so it would not be something you'd want to add during flowering stages of cannabis. But actually working hard, in 30 days, we're going to have the second formula, and we're going to be working on many different aspects. We have 5 in the build. How quickly they'll launch just will depend upon our team. We're working very hard and science-minded. So soon it'll be like, follow us, and you start with one and you're going to love it, and then you're going to say, oh, I need to get that other one because this is just dialing it in. And we're going to be giving back as we make profits. We're going to donate to local charities, land conserves. I'd really like to see maybe we go to different organizations like the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and say, hey, we got a bunch of seeds, we've got our nutrients, we'd like to donate it. We'd like to see if you guys want to do a spring project, like plant extra seedlings to donate to free members in the community so they can spread vegetable seeds around. And maybe the youth would really get on this and be really ecstatic and be like, oh, I love this. And so it's a way that we can give back. We can cover the cost, and it's important. So every facet of this is not about making money. Not in any way. It's about helping people grow good medicine, good food. So it's important to us. And every member of my team has been well sought out. They're the best of the best. I'm literally probably not the least skilled because I have a very big background, but I'm the rookie on the team. Everybody's an elder. There's one younger gentleman, but he's got the maturity of a veteran. Again, we're working really hard.
Nice, man. I love the idea of the ball return, because in our industry, that's one of our biggest issues, I think. Some people care, some don't, but like the amount of containers and waste that goes into just being an average consumer, whether you're buying it by like things by the gram in these small jars, whether you're buying cartridges,
so much waste.
whether you even buy nutrients, even when you're buying it in a gallon average, like a lot of these farms and operations will go through that fairly quick, and some they won't, but like it's still, we're producing a lot of garbage, right?
Almost certainly.
What interests me about this whole ordeal is the return system. Like I hate to say this because it's alcohol, but I remember in Vermont, and I don't know how it is everywhere, but the growler.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. That's essentially what we're really doing.
Reuse it. Yeah. So it's a great idea.
It's important. So like you can look at the waste. So if I turn around and take this cap off, there's a little thing in here. So that would be replaced. But this little piece in here, this little foam, insert is the only thing that's replaceable. And so it's generating the littlest waste we possibly can do. And I'm actually going to encourage them to find a way to make it without that, so that they could just be doing it without that waste even. We're going to spend almost the cost of the bottle, because we have these temporary labels, but they generate a piece of paper and the adhesive or tape to keep it on. So we're going to just eat the cost to get it either stamped or painted on, so that we're not even generating a label waste. It's just like, if the bottle could last 20 doses, and I got it back, I'd probably save it and use it as a flower dish to hold the single stem rose for my love. So I'm just about recycling. That's why I didn't even do the plastic cap. it came down to like, oh, so metal's going to be double. And I'm like, I don't like generating plastic. I just don't even like plastic at all. It's just not natural. Yes, it's recyclable, but it's just a product I just don't believe in. And metal is found in the ground. It's a mineral that's just essential to life. I mean, we do better with metal than we do most things. So we're sticking by it. We are going to be having different sizes. I mean, I'm looking for a commercial line that so that if a farmer went, I have a problem. I've been growing corn and soybean and I have no microbial life because of all the Roundup glucosamine that I sprayed on my fields. But so what they could do is they could come out and they have where they normally spray the Roundup, they can just detoxify their whole system, buy a 55-gallon, put it in, activate it. And after enough couple of treatments, the microbial life will heal their fields.
Nice. I mean, that's a big issue too, overgrowing some fields, and especially in some parts of this country right now after floods and some of the issues we've seen through just our environment. You know what I mean? Changes, flooding, storms. The floods have killed us here in Vermont and a lot of our low-lying soil, right? Oh, hey, welcome Thomas Marcom from Vermont Grow Coach. All right, so we almost have the whole crew here. So Thomas, tell us a little bit about, like, you know, we were talking about the product now, right? And we're talking about microbial. So there's a lot of people that are probably tuning in right now that might not know what the hell we're talking about, right? So let's talk about microbials and why should people be buying this product? What's the benefits to it? The pros and cons to it, if there's any cons. And I mean, we're well familiar with microbes and how well they work, right? And that a lot of people that are very successful with their grows, you know, that's a big significant part of it. But then again, there's a lot of people that don't even understand what we're talking about when we bring that up. Let us know real quick.
You got it. I'm going to kind of double back for just a second because I probably should have led with this. Oh-Tera is Mohawk Indian word for root. So I'm part Native American, so I wanted to honor that. But not even just that, it's the lineage that in my family, the hereditary lineage that's Native American is also the same lineage. My mother, my grandmother, and my great-grandmother that taught me the love of microbials and soil. And so how that begins, old Native Americans had this concept of the three sisters. And what they would do is they would companion plant. So you would have corn, a pole bean, and possibly a pea, but it wasn't always those three. And so the vining would grow around the corn, and then you were feeding yourself threefold. But what they actually did, and the Native Americans fully understood this, except they thought it on a spiritual level, which I still follow true to this day. So they'd go out fishing with their nets or whatever, however they caught their fish. And so for every one of these three companion plants, they put a microbial dose. And how they did that was they actually took a fish carcass and buried it with the plant. Now they knew what that was. They didn't know the science behind it per se, because they weren't probably even aware of the word nitrogen back then. However, what they were fully aware of is that the spirit and elements of that fish were being uptaken by those plants. And that's all they had to do. It was set it and forget it. Well, what's kind of happened current day is that, you know, you go back dating to the 50s and 60s, modern technology and modern advancement said, let's make it simple. So those lost ways, kind of the old ways, they kind of went out underneath. I mean, because if you go back to your great grandparents, if we jumped in a time machine and we went back there, you're not going to find Miracle-Gro anywhere. If you're like, what did you buy for your special nutrients? So like, what did you say? What? Huh? Or there might have been a bottle, like some grow juice by somebody. But they were kind of like, the soil does it, buddy. What are you talking about? We didn't need that. So why do you in the future need it? Well, it's because in America, we'd go bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So it's like we got away from organics for a while. It was like, oh, chemicals are where it's at, and which was such a lost derivative that we toxified the planet with all these chemicals. The same makers of Miracle-Gro, they're now like, we're all organic. Oh, you can't be on the evil Death Star and then jump on the good team now and be like, we always knew organic was where it was at. No, you poisoned the planet for 30 years. We're going to let you hang for that one. Us organic people who've been preaching it since day one are going to stick with the story we told. So with that being said, microbial life. So there's mycorrhizae fungi. And so that is a basic... It's a fungi that attaches to the ecosystem of the plant's root systems. It allows for communication. But the easiest way to simplify this is there are a bunch of good bugs you can't see They're all working together. They allow one plant to talk to a companion plant next to it, like to say, hey, I'm a tree and I notice you tree over there, you don't have enough nutrients. So I can tell the ground, you guys send him some stuff or her some stuff. She needs help. And that's the essential thing we've learned in the last 15, 25 years. This was new. It was brand new. We're like Christopher Columbus getting on the ship and just going and being like, what are we finding out? Thomas Markham, I'm sure, can attest to the factor that we learned something new, and you guys too. Every month or two, there's something like that's a breakthrough. And so we're kind of in new territory. So with that being said, I knew all along about the good beneficial bugs helping feed the plants. Spending the last 20 years trying to dial in which bugs do what, I've learned, because it's like I love Coast of Maine products, but I'm also a big Cali fan. So like Happy Frog and Ocean Forest can really do a grower good because it has land mycorrhizal fungi. So what I found is I was like, okay, how do I know which ones are the best? Well, I spent enough time going, I feel like having land and seed because it's important, especially if you're container growing, where you don't have it where you have the natural stuff there. You got a container, so you're going to add it. So as a cultivator in a super soil, I've always wanted to have as many good beneficial bugs as I possibly can. So in Oh-Tera, formula P1823, you have land and seed bugs. So the simplest way to put it is bugs, but they're suspended in nutrients. There's actually sugars in it that they're slowly activating and feeding off. We have a shelf life. I mean, essentially, if you kept the nutrients out of direct sun or hot heat, it could last, over a year and be just fine. But we're billing it with the sugars in it that we're going to get it right to you. You're going to use it right away. That's why it's a 10-ounce bottle. We have the larger scale for people that are going to produce and use more right off. But it's billed as more of a one-time activation. So if you bought this bottle, you might say, okay, so I get 5-gallon applications because it's 2 tablespoons per gallon. So 10 ounces will get you 5 gallons worth. You might say, okay, I can go on my garden and sprinkle a little bit around everywhere. I'm going to activate that. I'm going to go into my house plants, give everybody a little cup of drink, just so I'm giving them something. Okay, I'm growing cannabis also, or I have orchids, or I have different things. You're just all plant life's going to give it a drink. Now, as maintenance, if you've got a plant like cannabis that's done on the sooner side, you don't have to really do much other than a one-time dose of this. But for a house plant, maybe once a year, you'd want to activate it, because if you're not feeding sugars to that micro life, eventually it'll slowly die off. So there is maintenance, but it's more a 1 or 2 time thing. There is not an overdoing it. It's 2 tablespoons per gallon, just because I'm trying to say that's a good dose that's effective. You essentially could dump this directly on a plant and you're not going to see any toxicity whatsoever.
Right. Now, and this works with pretty much any other nutrient base that's
out there, it works
right?
right along. So even on my own grow, I'm still using other companies' products, fish shit, essence of the sea. I'm doing so much because it's beneficial. It's just something that goes really along. Like fish shit has 2,000 plus micro, organisms. And I'm sure that they've got bugs in there that I don't have. And I love the guys that fish shit. So it's like, I'm going to do that. And I believe in Essence of the Sea's mission, Nectar of the Gods. I use them for their pH up and down. So as we talked at the beginning of this co-oping, it's like working as one big family together is what's going to get it done.
Right. No, definitely. I mean, it's hard to do, especially in this industry as it is now. But it's interesting because, again, we talk about microbials a lot in soil, and we get asked that a lot. I mean, like microbials and terpenes. What are we talking about? You know what I mean?
Okay, so microbials, having your soil and your system dialed in, you're going to have terpene flavors, percentages. You would amplify your THC, CBD levels. Dialing in is very important. And so I would literally, like, if I was going to very quickly just talk about, let's highlight cannabis. Say right now, I'm going to just say, this is how we're going to grow it. I'd get myself a 5, 7, 10 gallon grow bag, put my clone in it. I'd probably use a land mycorrhizal soil, a sea mycorrhizal soil, mix them all together. I'm going to activate it with my Oh-Tera. I feel like the soil probably would feed it vegetatively long enough. If I needed to, I could add a little compost, but probably would be fine. When it's in bloom stage, again, we have a bloom formula that will be ready for those needing it. But I mean, I'd be adding my bloom formula, and then the nutrient level would be perfect, and then dialing it in, you're just all set. It's the only other things are just not, dialing in your watering schedule, so you're not over or under watering, having your temperatures good just to maximize it, but dialing it in, your flavor levels. And it's not just cannabis. A tomato is going to taste better when it's effectively grown the best way it can. And why try to do anything other than what Mother Nature does? So in nature, fish are going to die, wash up on the shore. They're going to be in a river. They're pooping. They're doing all this stuff. This is there in nature. But when people like, I'm going to go to the store, I'm going to buy some kind of peat moss that has nothing in it, and then that's what my garden's going to be, you're not really doing what Mother Nature intended. You're better off just going in your backyard, digging a hole and throwing it in there, activate it, and just let it do it.
Now, Thomas, I actually I have a question. You had mentioned that you use about 2 ounces per gallon of water, and that if you're using a house plant, you'd be providing the Oh-Tera about once per year, whereas with cannabis, just about once per growth cycle. Now, what if you were using, say, a perpetual grow in a living soil? Say you were doing an indoor 6 foot by 3 foot living soil bed. How often would you at that point?
So actually explaining to you, we have super soil beds. So I'm actually activating them every 2 weeks. And that's, I mean, if you go on Opia Farm right now, on any level, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, you'll see our super soil bed videos, and you're going to see celery going along with, vine tomatoes, THC, CBD bud. These are all together. And so to be honest, you can't overdo this. So because I can afford to have my own nutrients and really dial it in, I'm giving it to it, and it loves it. It's like, I'm not bragging, but every grower that thinks they really have their stuff dialed in, they walk into the test greenhouse and they're like, teach me. I don't know what's going on. I thought I knew, but I don't. And it's just by results speak for itself. I mean, I can do another fresh video and people are like, what is going on? So it's exactly what you're talking about, but I'm really giving it to it. I'm saying you can activate it if you really want to be the best of the best. No, you don't want to do it one time. You almost want to do it every damn time you feed and have it dialed in, because it is just adding those fresh micro bugs that are literally just enhancing it. So if some died off because they were just old and it was that time to die, you're giving fresh one, bam, bam, bam. And so with the Oh-Tera formula P1823, you can eliminate all. If you wanted to do it like that, you don't need another veg formula. You really don't. This has nitrogen. It has almost everything that you need. If I could eliminate the nitrogen out of it, it'd be the perfect bloom food too. So it's going to set you up for just perfection. And so somebody like you has a bed. I might decide what's a good balance. I feel like, Thomas, you can read a plant. So if you're like, wow, it looks like this one plant could use a little more, give it some. But if you really care about your plants, more is, better than less.
Fantastic. No, I absolutely love that. Thank you for that, Thomas. Go ahead, Joe.
Oh no, I was going to wait for you to finish with the question. My big thing, my next question basically was, I was going to ask about the live soil, because now we have all sorts of different mediums that everybody's growing out of. Is this product usable in hydro systems? Is it usable in like
the only thing you can't do with this is foliar spray, and it's not that it would clog up your leaflets. It could be a foliar spray, but all the elements inside of it kind of clog up the pump sprayers a little bit if you're putting it on fine mist mode. So I just don't choose to bill it as a foliar spray. But hydroponically, back in the day when we were, floating cannabis on koi ponds and stuff, we were really dialing in and seeing that. So as long as you have proper aeration and your hydroponics, oh yeah, it could be a great bill for that, and would work relatively well right along. So yes.
Well, I think the biggest thing you said in that should be the most thought about tip is find your balance, right? Because no matter
Find
what
your
nutrient
balance.
you're going to
And
use, it's
that's
going to provide
that's
a different.
essentially what it is.
So that's why we want to let everybody, because I mean, we get this question a lot about nutrients, especially when people are using other nutrients, and then when we start adding a couple different products into one nutrient, whether we're using advanced nutrients, whether we're using goddess-based solutions. Everybody needs to find that balance, right? Because I mean, I've seen a lot of people that actually kind of over nutrient some plants, trying to fix issues. Or the other thing I want to ask is about the pH. Like, how does this product affect anybody's pH levels?
Okay,
Because
well,
for
here
us,
there's a good thing to understand. I've changed the pH of this bottle, not gearing it for cannabis. I mean, it's hard from batch to batch. It's not exact, so that's why I can't be like the NPK ratio is exactly this. It's off kilter. It's close, but off kilter just a smidgen each batch. But I'm pHing it because a lot of the other micro organisms actually raise your pH. So I'm not going to name them because I love everybody, so I don't want them to think I'm trashing them. But when I use some of the other ones, and all I do is I add the dose they recommend into straight, distilled water. All of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm at 8.2. So I'm growing cannabis. I got to bring it down to 5.8 right now. So it really raised it. I dialed it in because I was billing it for all plants, but specifically for cannabis. So I knew as it sat, it was sitting at 7.6, and I went, no, these plants we're going to be feeding all across the world don't need it at 7.6. If I can drop it down, so it's hovering around a 5.8, a 6.3, maybe 6.5. So its neutrality is almost kind of perfect, unless you're looking for a higher alkaline soil. And I'm sure anybody doing that would be able to take their solution and pump up it for them. So it's billed to be perfect, right, directly out of the bottle. But I got to say something. I'm welcoming anybody who wants to go to Oh-Tera Organics Facebook, Instagram, or Oh-Tera Organics at gmail.com. If you have a question, you're not really sure, you want to understand more, you want to just hear, you're interested, you're like, I'm on board, I want to grow good food that is good for me. I want to do that. I just don't even have the foggiest clue where to start. I don't know about lighting. I don't know about soil. We will work very hard. Our team is really dialed in, so we can just answer each email. We can sit down with every person through the best communication possible and try and say, hey, you tell us what you're doing. Is it just that you have a bunch of indoor houseplants? Because that's different than a massive veggie garden or cannabis. And we can really walk you through that. We can also start to break down, hey, listen, our 4 other products that are going to be coming out very soon. If you're an orchid grower, we're going to have an orchid formula. So that might be intriguing to you. So I'm going to encourage everybody, just blow us up. Let us know what it is that you're looking for out of organic plants. Are you an orchid grower? Are you a bonsai tree grower? Do you, because I'll tell you, here's a couple things. We have a maple forest. We give our maple tree doses of it because I want to help them with their mycorrhizal fungi. I mean, it's important. I know it's there, but I want to give them more. I want it to be better. I want to give to them because I want those plants to be better treated than they had been in the past. So it's not even just that. You're a veggie farmer. You got apple trees. You got yourself blueberry bushes. It's everything. I mean, to be honest, we were recommending people activate their entire lawn, but what happens is it turns your lawn into such an amazing lushness, but you mow your lawn a lot. So it's like, well, maybe we don't want to encourage people to have to mow their lawn a little bit more. So you might not have to do that. But everybody I know so far, they're coming, they're grabbing it. They're like, I have one Christmas tree. I just added to that. They're calling me back. They're like, what is in it? And I'm like, it's just heaven. That's what's in it. Right. And it's like one thing after another. And so like the indoor plants, I mean, I bought this little succulent and it was freshly rooted. I took it inside. It's on my kitchen table, barely getting any light. But I was like, I love you, little thing. I don't got room for you, but I want to see you grow. So I give her a drink. My friend comes over. He's like, I saw it yesterday and it's 2.5 inches bigger. I'm like, okay. Well, I mean, I tell you what, give me a sec.
Real. Oh my God.
So
what would you do before you
do
did this?
Okay. So we're gonna give him a little break, guys. He's gonna step off for a minute. So microbials, man. We learned that a lot of this soil needs it, right? We're learning that plants love it. There's a lot of great products out there.
Probably should have, Joseph. I probably should have planned this. I should have led with this. This succulent right here is 6 days in my possession. It had no flower to it. Can you see her? It had none. It was just a flat succulent mother, one baby to her, 3 doses, and she is now, let's say, a good 14, 16 inches, and she's flowering. She's breathtaking. She's not getting the ample light. And I actually forgot to water her a couple of times, so I would not call this dialed in. But just from that, she's gone bonkers. So it's like if you got roses, it's going to amplify your bloom percentage on your flowers. It's going to enhance everything.
Mm-hmm. Now you're running basically greenhouse style too, right? So you're using natural
you got
sun
it, indoor, outdoor, in every way, shape, or form. If you can grow it, we're doing it. I've got my hands in vegetables. We have a fruit orchard that's small, but it's at my folks' house, so we maintain it. We have secret gardens down at my sister's farm. She's got everything that she's doing there. We've got co-op growers all around the state, all around the New England, and some across the country, because I'm literally trying to get it out there. I mean, I'm almost was at the point where I was like, no, I'd rather not have people use smaller amounts of it. I'd rather them just really dose it, because like 3 drinks to this, and look at what this did. So it's like I was going to kind of say, okay, maybe I could run a promo, buy 1 bottle, get 1 bottle free. The problem was I was losing my face on it. So I went, okay, maybe I could do 2 bottles and get 1 free. So I went, it just doesn't really work. So we're going to try and come up with some kind of 4-pack combo, and it's going to be like a challenge. Like if you literally use it and it's not blown your mind, call me back up, because I'm going to show you didn't do something right. I'm not trying to be arrogant. I'm just saying like results speak for themselves. But what we're going to get out of that balance is I'm going to teach you how to be just a better gardener, because this is literally the best of the best, and it should be used. I mean, everything else, it's not, so you can buy everything else, but this succulent has just got water and us. That's all she wrote.
Right. Now,
nothing more.
This is the biggest question everybody's going to ask is, obviously it's non-toxic, right? I mean, if we can dose it.
It's totally not toxic. You could drink it. I don't think it would taste very good, but it's not going to poison anything. It just, our research and development and product room just tastes. You ever smell fish emulsion? It's like we got composted this. So it's just like, if you don't like earthy, really hippie type vibes, you probably want to plug your nose.
You're right. Yep. Oh yeah. I mean, if anybody's ever opened a bottle of fish shit, or I mean, Mammoth Pea isn't too bad, but they definitely have an odor to them, and you can tell they're natural. They're
they definitely do. And here's another thing with our other products. We're getting a trout tank facility. We're going to be trying to use local Eurasian milfoil. It's a nuisance. It's polluted all of our lakes. Not polluted, but it's overgrown all of our lakes. So it's like, I want to get back and clean it up, but it has an amazing amount of nutrient value. So I was like, I can do something with that. So we're working with the towns, the states, to try to see, can we take that invasive species and turn around and make it a big time positive? So the research and development, that is really going really, really well. So we got good things going on. It's just, I guess at this point, what we need is everybody just take the chance, just order a darn bottle and give it a shot, because it's like, it's worth it.
Right.
If I didn't have so much in research and development trying to get the other products, I'd probably just say, everybody call me up and I'll give you a bottle for free.
I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, guys. I mean, this is a collaborative question, everybody, but I feel like this is the time of where we're at right now is everybody seems to be trying everything. It used to be everybody had their own products, but now with like the fish shit products coming out, the Mammoth Pea products coming out, it seems like everybody is really trying to find. I mean, how many products have you experimented with?
Oh, I've experimented with most all of them. If it's organic, I just curious how it works. So I'm going to take like this extra plant and I'm going to use that as a test variable and see. And that's how I've actually found out that things, some that do work and some are just a waste of time, or not a waste of time, but very overpriced. And there's a lot of them. I mean, Mammoth Pea is awesome. I mean, fish shit is awesome. The only problem is that some of those you're going to have to take a mortgage out to buy them. So it's like for a tomato, is that practical? Not even sort of. I'm not saying people don't do it, but Bill Gates isn't gardening right now in this program. Regular people are. So it's like, do you want to spend $130 on a bottle or 25? And so like, it's just really up to you. So I'm still recommending everybody do what they're doing. It's just like, I priced this so cheap. I mean, the smart people in the company went, why are we selling it for 25 when all of our competitors for that same size are 50 plus. And I was like, because I want the average person to be able to afford to grow it and do it right.
Right.
That's important. It's not about money with us.
And you don't really have to rip people off either doing it, right?
No, you don't. You don't.
I mean, support some industries. It's great. I mean, so it's non-toxic, right?
You got it.
It's all organic, correct?
100% organic. All derived from either a water, an animal, or the land. I mean, so it's all, everything's, and we're processing it, some fermentation, some just aeration, some extraction. But we're not processing in a way that makes it anything other than just getting it in the bottle so it works.
Right.
We're not adding anything like, sodium silicate or anything there's nothing. It's all organic 100%.
And the plant will take all of it. That's the biggest thing. A lot of people don't realize that they're just throwing additives and other additional shit in there. Your plant won't even take up, especially if your pH is off, right?
Oh, yes, you'll get nutrient lockout easily. And then you've wasted all that time for nothing. So it's like, why turn around and hope that adding 8 different products might do it, and you're probably going to overdo it and just get yourself just plumb out of luck? Or you can just have one bottle, give it a whack, and then find out, hey, I tried just that one time. It's like, here's a challenge. Like, if you already think you got it dialed in, I challenge you to prove me that if you buy my bottle and all you do is use this and you do, your pH and whatnot, but none of your other stuff, I'll buy you a steak dinner and probably take you to Vegas if whatever concoction you got can beat it, because it's not happening. I've been doing this for a long time. I'm 41. And if there was something better, I would have done that.
Right.
That would have been the simple answer. So we're still working in collaboration because I don't have a pH up and down. That's not something I'm manufacturing right now. So I go to somebody on that. Essence of the Sea, we don't have a foliar spray, and that stuff is just like wildfire. That stuff and our combo and fish it and certain things is just really dialing it in. So as I said, we're still co-oping with everybody. I mean, the foliar spraying of Essence of the Sea, just still everybody's like, I cannot believe this. And now we're having you again. This is just like a 2-punch combo.
Nice. And now this is all made in Vermont too, correct?
100%.
Which is
100%. So right now our manufacturing facility is in Bristol. We're looking for a larger facility to be really able to dial it in and have room for expansion, but we are 100% local. All employees are local. As I said, it's going to be done and set up as an employee-owned profit sharing company.
Nice. And then how much better does it get than that, right?
Oh, you got it. It's like, if you take care of your employees, you give them a legacy, you give them something they can live through. It's like so many employees, like you say to yourself, okay, my son's not feeling good today, but if I take off, I've used my last sick day, and it's like, what am I going to do? And my boss is going to write me up again, and I don't know how to do that. And I just, or like, I'm really stressed, man, and I wish I could just go home a little early and see my wife because I just want to cry today. But you got some bosses like, you punch out before 5, you don't have a job. Well, I'll tell you here, that's not the case. If I saw an employee that just didn't look right, I'd take them off to the side and be like, is there something I can do to help? And setting that aside, if they went, I need to go home, I'd be like, you got it. It's paid, man. You're part owner. Take off. Don't even ask me. Let's go. Just make sure somebody's covering what you were doing. We got you.
Right. Well, it's more family. Of a collaborative.
It's important.
Yeah, exactly. So everybody covers for everybody, and the mutual thing. It's always interesting because, I mean, we've all been in businesses. We're all experiencing this. So it's like you usually kind of fill your own roles at some point, right? Everyone just kind of helps everybody wherever we need it. There's no that ain't my job kind of a thing, right? And then there's also the respect there that's needed to keep your structure in a business too. So it's
100%.
really unique, and we see a lot of these collaborations in the banking industries. We're always preaching, and you've been on the show before. We preach the collaborations as much as we can, for the co-ops, the growers that come together, because together we stand stronger than we can separate, right? In our market of uncertainty, really, it's an uncertain market right now, isn't it? I mean, we talk about the CBD all the time in the hemp game. It's up and down. People are in demand. It's not in demand. There's overstock. There's not enough in certain areas, which, to me, that makes no sense, and we also see it in the other side of the industry as well. So, but the new product sounds absolutely amazing, man. We're stoked to, you might have to send me a bottle to test this stuff.
No. I'm going to get you guys all out a bottle. We're actually going to try and do, loop around Vermont. There's a few of us, and we're going to be in locales. So it'll be announced. If people go to Oh-Tera Organics, again, Instagram, Facebook, the website's under development, or Oh-Tera Organics@gmail.com, and say, I want to be part of this. When you're in my area, I want to go to that consultation. What we're going to do is do some local meetups in each county, being like, here, we're running the sale. Here's your bottles. You want to ask us some questions. You want to get an understanding how you should do it. We can talk real quick and get it out there. I am also offering free shipping for the time being. So if somebody just wants to contact us and be like, I want to get a bottle and it's going to be in, we're going to go down and get it shipped right out to you.
Mm-hmm. Which is great. I mean, that's the biggest problem we're having right now in COVID as well, is the shipping issues. Trying to get something across country.
That's why we're talking about making it out so that, at one point I'll be in the northeast part of the state, northwest, southeast, southwest, central, and we'll be able to be like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so on and so forth. And I'm going to encourage everybody to be like, hey, I'm picking up bottles for all my growing friends, because we can't do it a lot. It's hard. I don't want to spend a lot of gas. It's just not good for the environment to be running around like crazy. But it's a chance where we can just jump right around the corner, not have to mess with a credit card. We can accept cash if that's what somebody wants. They can just come down. We can try to keep it so everybody's socially distancing, and we'll just get it done. So again, anybody can get at us, Oh-Tera Organics. You can also always come to Opia Farm, because that's me. So it's the easiest way to get directly to me. But in any way, shape, or form, if you say, hey, I want to know more, we're going to contact a list. Once we got it all really dialed in, and that's going to be in the next couple of weeks. I mean, it could be very well starting just next Monday. But, we're going to get around the state. It may not be me in every locale, because I want to try to do this and do it right. But everybody there is going to be representing as an owner, as an informed grower, and it's just going to be a good situation. I mean, we at Oh-Tera Organics produce top quality land and seed-derived organic plant nutrients. Our formula P1823 it's a bio living boost stimulant that's good for any plants. I mean, you can watch the ecological life literally thrive with only 2 doses. If you did 1 or 2, I mean, I'm going to recommend more, but it really boils down to using ancient Native American techniques where you're able to produce nature in a bottle. So you said what soils? You could use peat moss and you're going to activate it. It's not as great as a super soil, but it's as close as you're going to get, and it's way better than anything you've done before with that.
Right. Now, like you were talking before, I mean, you can age out soil. A lot of the good growers know this, but you need to basically reignite it after a couple grows, right?
Oh, definitely. It helps. I mean, again, as Thomas was saying, for cannabis, I'm using more than 1 dose. I mean, realistically, I guess for a full indoor life cycle, I might hit it 2 and 3 times. And that's during veg, maybe once right at seedling stage, once early veg, and then once kind of 3/4 through veg, good couple weeks before flip of flower. Cause I'm I don't want a lot of nitrogen. So I'm going to back that off. And again, we're going to have these other, bloom food and whatnot. We're going to have these dialed in very quickly. So if somebody wants to give a shot for an indoor grow and they're like, hey, I got a perpetual garden, I want to give one container bag or whatever a try, start out with this. By the time you need it for bloom, I've got you covered. And to be honest, if with the bloom, it's a 2-part combo, one's for veg, one's for bloom. You don't need a micronutrient. You're going to have everything you need right in there.
Nice. I mean, that just sounds like an amazing product. I mean, now let me ask you a question, and this is something that I'm interested in too, because right now in the cannabis industry, microbes are the hot subject, right?
They are.
Like we said, the fish shit's blowing up. Mammoth P's been on the top of a mountain for a while with their products, and they're significantly different too. So don't let me say.
Oh no, they are definitely different. There are things in those other that I don't have, and as I said, if you've already got it dialed in, add me to your regimen. Don't replace things. That's not necessary. I'm not asking for that. Right. I'm just saying, give it a try, because I feel like it's like if you were going to go and you were going to play a basketball game against, any number of people, are you going to do better by yourself, or you got your one buddy who's a good defense?
Right.
So it's like many people elements. It's like coming together to work for the best situation.
Well, the thing I was getting to is you mentioned farms and like being able to be used on all sorts of other.
See, that's where that's where this really boils down to. So because of all the Roundup that the farmers were spraying, the microbial life is just poison. And as we were talking about the runoffs, it's leached into the river streams, and it's just toxifying. So like areas vastly are void of microbial life. And so I don't know how it's going to work exactly, but when our facility is up and running, I'm going to encourage every farmer. I'm going to work because farmers don't have a lot of money. So maybe there's, some kind of thing we can do to help come out and get them set up with a 55-gallon drum to give, just try a field activate it. And the next year when you're like, wow, then it's like, I'm not asking you to buy the farm all in one shot. It's just like give a little bit of a piece of a try. And when it's proven itself, then you do what you got to do. And we'll be ready for you because we want to work with everybody. We want to hear. I love hearing pictures. When somebody buys a cannabis seed or a tomato seed or anything from me, when I see a picture of look at what my garden looks like, it warms my soul. It literally is beautiful to see that in action. So I love the communication. It's community and a family network.
Yeah, and it's hard to find nowadays in this industry, right? Because it's kind of become a cutthroat.
Well,
everyone's argumentative over your way.
Some people it's all about what is best for one. And as you can see, I mean, I started the company from the ground up with a good team, but I instantly went, employees could be like every other employee, but I want them profit sharing because I want to share this. I want this to be a family thing. I want every person in this company to take top pride in what they do and just give me what they've got, the best of the best.
Right, and that's all we could ask for. Guys, we're going to do a couple break-ins here. We'll get Thomas on to do his little segment. Tom, are you ready? I mean, I don't want to put you in a spot, but I want to tell everybody that Thomas has been down and out for a little while now. He had a knee operation going, and being as busy as he is, I don't think he's sat still really.
Yeah, Joe, I'll tell you, I did not have time to end up getting a segment ready for this week. After Friday and going back to see the doctor and having him drain over 30 milliliters of fluid from my knee and then scold me like I was a toddler, I felt that it was best that I just stay down as much as possible. And I wasn't afraid of his lashing. The lashing that I'd get from my wife would be 10 times worse. So unfortunately, I do not have a segment this week, but I promise next week's will be fantastic. I already have it planned.
All right, cool. That's fine. Let me ask my question. Let me finish up one of my earlier questions because I have both Thomases here, which I highly respect. Now, the question I have is, I'm a weed guy, right? Let's be honest. So it's not like I know much about farm life or anything like that. I'm a city guy, suburb guy, whatever you want to call it, right? Flatlander, right? So I don't spend much time on the farm. Love farms. I like to go pet animals. I like to grow things. But how much? Do our farms normally using microbes in their soils now, or is it something that's going to be fairly new to this, just like even the farming industry where we're looking at tomatoes? Because like you said, a lot of these guys, we get so used to using these chemicals, right? The miracle grows, and we're literally killing our soils, right? And we're realizing this, and now that we're starting to outlaw these, the farmers are looking for something new. Is this going to be like a whole new thing for the farm industry, the agriculture industry?
I think, especially in Vermont, there's always been organic farmers, but there's also been plenty of conventional farmers. There are numerous hemp farms on a daily basis that I'll go out to, and it'll be my first trip out there. How are you guys doing? You're getting ready to plant? Oh, fantastic. What are you using for fertilizer? Oh, well, we're using this big bag of green powder. Or, oh, we're using this big bag of blue powder. Either way, 9 out of 10 times, they're using some sort of synthetic nutrient that they're pumping through a tube. And I think microbial life is highly beneficial to all forms of farming, whether it be cannabis, hemp, or otherwise. Just as Thomas was pitching for using it for tomatoes and his celery and everything else, and his houseplants, it works the same way out in the field. If you can get out there and spread microbials beneficially throughout the entire field, the whole black plastic drip tape thing is completely unnecessary. In fact, if you can develop a soil and train your soil to actually be properly rich and full of microbes, drip tape isn't necessary at all. Maybe a water here or there throughout the season if necessary, if it's really dry, but otherwise it's a no-till setup. Go out, plant in the field, and just the next year spread a little bit more microbes, to help give it a boost when you start off in the spring. But for the most part, I think there are very few Vermont farms, except for maybe a few certified organic farms, that are actually following that process right now.
Mm-hmm. When we talk about certifications on organic farms, I mean, there's a huge discrepancies in a lot of this, correct?
There's a huge discrepancy between what is considered organic and what's actually organic. You pay to be considered organic. When you're actually organic, you can have a product that's actually organic. Opia Farms, they grow entirely organically with their Oh-Tera product. That's an entirely organic product, regardless of whether or not they've made themselves only listed, regardless of whether or not they paid some company to be put on some list somewhere to say, oh, hey, we're organic. You can tell that it's an organic product because you know that the products going into it are organic. Whereas there are other products out there where I think it's a huge stretch to even consider them being organic. There's certain products listed on the OMRI website, certain peat mosses and things of that nature that are considered to be organic, but they have to be properly washed and salts removed and processed considerably before they can actually be used. So in my opinion, that wouldn't actually be something organic, but it makes the list because they have the money to do so.
Right. I mean, and then the stipulations are really wide and broad range in some instances, right? I mean, there's organic certifications that on their own will hold themselves to a higher regard than others. We talk about the clean green certifications and things of that nature, the OMRI symbols and things that people look for. And I think you make a great point, because some of these things that we are looking at that being organic, they don't have 100% organic products in them. They're derived, or there's little ways around getting those things. So to find a true product that is really locally made without outsourcing of crazy chemicals and just kind of batched here makes it really great. Like Thomas was saying earlier, how he's fermenting stuff and he's actually making it and growing it and doing all the steps it takes, and he's been doing it for years. So mastering a product, I would love to see it, you know what I mean, because I have tried to fish it. I have implemented that into my systems, you know what I mean. I've seen other people that have used it and have loved every drop of it, right? The plants really love it. Same with like the mammoth, you know what I mean. I actually use both in conjunction, my personal things at different ratios, right? Looking at the back of the products. That's why I was like, the interesting thing about the microbial products out there in the market, no one's really like copycatting everybody. You guys are finding unique new microbes that, I mean, some of these things no one's ever even heard of, right? They're not even on charts because we don't know what they are yet, but we know how to derive them and get them to be where we need them for our plant to be happy. The biggest thing, like I said, especially with like the Miracle Grow, that whole market that has been really exposed in the last few years, right? When we talk about all the chemicals that people were spraying, like you were saying, Thomas, and both Thomases, right? Like a lot of these farms relied on these for years because there wasn't another option, right? So to get their plants to literally help guarantee them a strong enough grow or output, or however you want to say it, harvest, right? They're kind of forced to use it, and now we're having runoffs and stuff like that. To basically get certified in an organic farm, right? It's like a 3-year clean process, correct? In most places.
Depending on the state, is usually a 3 or 5 year process where you have to confirm that you have not used anything other than organic products on your farm for the past 3 to 5 years, and then show that anything that you're going to be using in the future is also going to be entirely organic based. You have to prove where your water is coming from. You have to prove where all your fertilizers are coming from, that your seeds are properly sourced and organically sourced, if at all possible. That was one of the big hurdles for a lot of hemp farmers. Is one of the certification requirements would be that you need to obtain certified organic seed if possible. But until the Farm Bill came into play, you couldn't get certified seeds. So there was a catch-22 as to whether or not you could actually be organically certified. So you had to do everything that you could to try to get certified organic seed before falling back on another option. But for the most part, the biggest issue that I see with a lot of farms is the upfront costs that it actually takes to become certified. When it comes down to it, a lot of these farms are growing hemp, or they're growing other crops specifically to survive. I mean, that's their moneymaker. At the end of the season, they're hoping they have a good crop just so they can get through the winter and buy their kids a couple of Christmas presents. So, I mean, when it comes down to it, I'm done. Your turn.
Well, I mean, I guess the next thing I was going to say is, like, with the new the Farm Bill, the 2018 Farm Bill, The FDA has or the USDA has organic certification now, right? I mean, that was one big thing we were waiting for. That was a hurdle that we've just recently established. So there's a stamp you can get, right? And more than likely we're going to have required if we want to stay in an FDA portion of sales, right? Whether it's a gummy or an edible or whatever you're going to do, you're going to need a sort of organic certification at some point, depending on the products, right? And everybody asks about it, right? Because we've seen a lot of groups that falsely advertise the organic certifications, right? We've had Maine has done something on their own little end, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the government or anybody specific anything has deemed it organic. It's just we've seen these things as issues. Now, Tom.
Yes.
With all these organic, the feeds, everything else, the waters, like Thomas was saying, like Vermont's really known for great water sources as well, right? So I'm really excited to see this product. I'd like to get my hands on some if you can send some out. We'd love to test it with some of our other people. Again, for people that just tune in, because I'm seeing there's a lot more people tuning in now that weren't on before. You have a great ball-in program, right? So part of the big idea is that you have a ball-in program that you can return the ball, swap them out. So there's another big plus for anybody that wants to try to use a product and be environmentally friendly, as we would say, right? Now, your Oh-Tera product, you're using that pretty much across your whole line now, right? So you've been implementing it for years, so it's not like it's something that hasn't been tested and it's kind of a new thing thrown together and pushed out to market. We've talked about how it can be used with all the different mediums that people should be using, right? Or technically be using. You can use it with any other nutrient-based product or combine it with another microbial product, right? We discussed a little bit of the microbes and how they work in the soil and that they're non-toxic. So you can't really harm a plant with it, which some of these nutrient systems, dude, you can really mess up a plant if you over nutrient. We talked about pH levels, and I kind of want to go back to the pH level thing real quick. I got Tim that I want to get to here real quick, but you said something that I don't think a lot of people realize. I want to touch base on it, but we kind of got away with it. And this is something that I've realized a lot lately in talking to people. Was and tell me if I'm wrong, guys, and Brandon too. I'd love your input on this. Is everybody seems like they have a calcium issue, right? And I've been researching the calcium issues and stuff like that. We talk about plant uptake and pH levels and the acidity that the plants will start cutting off certain things, right? So within this, we've talked to a few people and had them switch a few things up and realize that it really is effective. Now, when we talk about uptake in plants, that's what I'd like you guys to just elaborate on a little bit more for the guys tuning in, why that's important. The pH levels, I mean, we never really talked about a great pH area that we're shooting for. For me, in my mindset, you're in soil, you're looking at like a 6 to 6.5. You're in hydro, you're looking at like a 5.5 to 6, and basically it's because of the uptake in the roots, right? Explain that to a few of the people, because I seem to see, like, even when we're on like our social media pages, guys, how many times have we seen people that look like they have they need a calcium issue? So like you guys hit on earlier, what's the first thing they do? They run out and buy a bottle of CalMag, right? Or a product of such. And the next thing you know, they're chasing problems while creating problems.
Mm-hmm.
So just while we're here talking about this, because I mean, we went over a lot of information today. So whoever's listening is probably a little bit brain fried. And the one thing we didn't really touch base on is something that I really want to preach to all growers, because your proper pH levels could change your whole grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now, and that's why I asked you, Tom, about your product. Is it a neutral pH? Is it a higher pH? Most places we have to off gas our water because we don't have a natural fed stream that we can rely on, right? So we're always testing our pH levels. Go into the plant uptake. So that's the one thing I think we don't talk about enough on the show.
So with nutrient uptake, it's different from plant to plant, but cannabis likes to be on, the lower side. And that's why this hovers at a neutral to lower side. I'm still going to recommend everybody pH their water, especially with cannabis. I mean, for the at-home grower, I don't really feel like you have to, if it's not cannabis and you're not really that focal pointed on maximizing it. It's just, add a couple tablespoons per gallon. No big deal. But in the same token, for cannabis, you would want to check it. But I think you'll find this isn't going to change it up or down, really. It's just going to remain a neutral.
Right. Well, I mean, that's what we want. It was just more the fact that, like, people don't, it seems like there's a conversation we have a lot with the pH levels with people, right? Like you said, most plants, it doesn't matter. House plants, we can take it right out of our tap. The biggest thing is when we talk to people a lot, it's like, are you on a spring well or are you on city water? Because like in my town here, they chlorinate the water, they fluoride the water. And then when they do it and they shock it, basically, you know, I've seen plants trip out over it. You know what I mean? Because now
certainly.
it's just like crazy chlorine. And, you know, if you're not really pH minded, I just seem to think a lot of people have these issues. Like you're saying, they're using 8 bottles of a nutrient based system to try cover in all these little zincs and CalMags and magnesiums, because, you know, they're looking at things and it could be 90% of it could be just in your water, right? Now, that being said, you know, it's a wise investment to go out and get a pH level, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Certainly.
Joe, let me touch base on the pH for a minute, because you had actually mentioned that it doesn't matter for houseplants, but that's not the case.
Well, I mean,
when it
that's
comes down to it,
I said it in general.
no, that's okay.
Thinking,
No, I'm
right?
helping you. I'm helping you out. I'm gonna go into the different nutrients a little bit. So with houseplants, just like with any other plant, you know, with cannabis and everything else, you know, a pH level definitely plays a huge role. The problem is with most people, they don't care that their house plant isn't doing as efficient as it possibly can. They don't care that the aloe isn't throwing a bunch of pups, or that their spider plant isn't throwing a bunch of leaves off the plant. When you get to cannabis, everybody cares about their final yield. Everybody cares about their terpene profile and their high THC or their high CBD content and their high cannabinoid profile. They're babying these plants. So looking at that pH level, it's not that it doesn't matter in other cases. It's just that nobody cares about their other plants as much in that matter. So on the pH level itself, you have a scale of nutrient uptake per plant. So if you, with cannabis, for instance, you had mentioned 5.5 to 6.0 is your preference for hydro, and 6 to 6.5 was your preference for soil. Do you know why those preferences are? It's because at different pH levels, different nutrients are available to your plant. So something that may be available at 6.0 might be as available at 6.5. So personally, I actually fluctuate my pH every time I water. So if I'm working with soil, I may give it 6.2 one time, 6.5 another time, and fluctuate back and forth so that all of the available nutrients within the soil are provided to the plant.
Now that's a great point, Thomas, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because you hit on the subject I wanted you guys to point out. Like I understand the science. I'm trying to think of the people that are watching the show, because I get in this debate a lot about plant uptakes, right? Now let me ask you a quick question. Now, if you are swapping we know like cannabis likes to be, they just like to have their own thing, right? Like they like the consistency. They don't like changes, right? They can go into shock modes. We can hermium unless it's a really good genetic. So there's issues that can be found. When you go up and down your pHs like that, Thomas, does the plant have any effect, or is it usually a positive effect?
Usually, if anything, it's only a beneficial effect, because in reality, you're staying within the pH range that's acceptable for the plant. So if you're saying, okay, well, I want to see somewhere between 6.0 and 6.5, well, at that point, as long as you're staying within that range, you're not at any point being detrimental to the plant, because you haven't locked out any portion of those nutrients.
Right. So I mean that's the big thing I want to talk to people about, because again, I even have been researching that a lot lately, because there's there's some discrepancies, and when there's a discrepancy between soil and hydro, which is a lot of people don't understand either, because talking to people about setups and pHs, and these are the questions I'm always asking everybody, right? There's discrepancies, and it's like, why? You know what I mean? And like I noticed that the CalMag thing has always been an issue, and like to buy a bottle of CalMag, as we all know, isn't cheap, right? And most of these basically isolated different, whether it's zinc or compounds that you need in your plant, nutrient-based plants, it ends up costing a lot of money. And like Thomas pointed out before, his big thing was to stop chasing issues, right? Like everybody will go buy CalMag, and then now we have another issue. Now they go buy zinc. Now we have another issue. They go buy magnesium. Now on top of their nutrient system, they're feeding it even more. And now, whether that's a toxic product and it's not an organic product, you can have a plant effect. If it's a natural product, it might not affect it as much. I think that's the biggest thing that people have an issue with, because, like Thomas said, and, our Thomas has pointed out numerous times before, once you get your plant locked in, and you don't need a lot of nutrients, right? You really don't. It's just keeping your soil alive, especially if you're in soil. It's your light cycles, it's your pH, it's clean water. You know, a lot of times we have a lot, you know, our water is another big issue, as in any case. But again, I don't think people really look at the pH levels enough, because I can't tell you how many people I've talked to are like, you got a pH level? Can you tell me what your water is right now? And they're like, what's that?
And
You know what I
that's
mean?
that's a huge problem. Even a lot of inexperienced grow shops and stuff that pop up. I haven't counted, the number of times, but I'm sure there's been numerous where I've received a phone call and someone said, "Oh yeah, the person at this grow shop told me to pick up this, 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 and this." I said, "Okay, you got your tent, you got your lights, you got your starter pots. Okay, how about your pH meter?" My what?
Right.
Because these people don't think about it.
What we talking
When
about?
it comes down to, if you're using a living organic soil, pH isn't necessarily as much of an issue. If you're providing it a good clean water that's a relatively decent pH, it's going to take care of itself. It's not as much of an issue with, say, hydroponics or using synthetic nutrients, but it's still beneficial to monitor and keep an eye on periodically. Every once in a while I'll do a flush on my soils where I'll give them drench them with water and just check the pH of the water that comes out, just to make sure everything's still on par, because every once in a while things do get a little out of whack. And if it could use a little bit more of this or a little bit more of that, it's better to monitor it at that point and adjust it along with the pH levels, as opposed to, as you were saying, chasing the problem.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing. Everybody just goes to chase a problem. And I think, what Oh-Tera is trying to do is save people money. You know what I mean? And that's the thing where, you're going to be investing lots of money in nutrients, and you're going to be thinking that you're going to need them all the time. And then again, like we also said, different plants like different things. So like if you have a couple different plants going in the same environment, right, constantly getting fed the same things, I've experienced this before where we had two totally different opposite plants, right? And I'm not going to name strains or anything, but one was a tall, grew like a tree, and the other one grew like a bush, right? And then once you made the one happy with nutrients and where she wanted to be, the other one was pissed off, right? So, trials and tribulations aren't bad. Separating things and knowing your plants aren't bad either. Like Thomas was saying, try new things. I think I'm kind of excited about this time, because I mean, obviously we have things going on in the background too for nutrients and lines. And I think, since the age of mammoth, since the age of fish shit, people are willing to actually try to use these in accordance to their grow systems. And like you guys said, I don't think there's anybody, I mean, if there's anybody out there tuned in right now and you're listening, if you've ever not seen a benefit from using any of these products, let us know. You know what I mean? Because I don't think that we've ever seen a complaint about it, right? I mean, they're organic, they're natural, the results really speak for themselves. And when you can get a product on that line, especially with farmers, this is something that I want to make sure that farmers understand, because when we talk about like tomatoes, we talk about house plants being different than cannabis plants, the way they grow, which they are, right? And the closest thing that we associate with is tomatoes, right? And that's kind of like our closest thing. But there's a big difference, like you were pointing out, Thomas, like that the cannabis plants need a different attention than your tomato plant would, right? Or your flowering bush outside, whether it's a berry or whatever you need. Typically outside things take care of themselves, but when you bring them inside to your own environment, you have to control all those elements. I think too many people go out and buy a bag of Fox Farm because like you said, the inexperienced guy at the local hardware store said, "Hey, this is, it's Fox Farm or Costa Maine." And then you typically go for the cheaper variety, right? Then they'll run it out, and they'll get into it, and they'll realize that they overnutrited the soil. So like the first couple months are perfect, and the next thing you know, their plants are dying at the end. You know what I mean? Because they don't know. And this is one of the big things we want to discuss on the show, because now, how many people are growing right now? Like we just got back in the season. Thomas, we've been doing grow conversations for a while now. We've had the other Thomas on the show as well, from the growing perspective, right? So right now is the time of people need to educate themselves. So if you're struggling with your what you think you have a nutrient problem with, try your pH. Go buy a meter, right? Call Tom or Tom up and ask them, or try their products that they recommend, or let them know, because again, different things will react differently, but everything should be usable and safe together. So you don't need to worry about detoxifying your plants, which I think is the biggest thing that, this is the biggest thing we've been talking about for the last year, especially with, like you said, the Miracle-Gro movement, I guess you could say, and that's like a global thing now. So with them being out of the picture, now we have farms literally scrambling to find the best product, and sometimes sadly at the least cost, right?
Yeah, so I think when it comes down to it, for both farmers as well as residential growers, they're always looking for whatever's going to be easy and cost effective. And unfortunately, for the longest time, Monsanto and everybody else is pushing, oh, use the purple powder, use the pink powder, use the green powder, mix it with your water. It's fantastic. But it's not. I mean, it may grow your plant well, but it destroys the environment, and it's not healthy for your body either. Even properly flushed products can still be high in certain metals, depending on the individual product that you're using. So in that sense, living organic is going to be your best bet at providing a healthy product for yourself and making sure that the environment is still healthy for your children and your grandchildren and your grandchildren's children.
Right. Like Thomas said, Popke was saying, and this is, I think, the next critical thing I think we need to discuss. And again, I imagine people understand this, but we talked about the long-term uses of products and the effect on the environment, right? This is a product that you can literally use consistently and not have to worry about anything but benefits, right? Like there's no.
Exactly. I mean, he had mentioned, if you can afford it, he'd be giving it to his plants, all the time. Well, if you can afford it, you could be giving it to your lawn too, because it's going to help the lawn as well, and it'll provide microbial growth to the lawn. And if you decide to plant tomatoes or a couple of cannabis plants out there 10 years down the road, they're going to do that much better because you put the microbial life in there now. When it comes down to it, like I said, with the easy growth characteristics, everybody's looking for that quick and easy, cheap method. Organics was long ago made into a myth to be, an expensive growing method and difficult to grow. But if you start with a good soil to start with and start with a good living organic soil, you can put your tomatoes and your cannabis and your celery, just like Thomas over at Opia Farms does, all in the same bed. And they'll grow fantastically in the same bed. And none of them will have any deficiencies or anything because you've provided the proper soil for the plants to use the nutrients. And because it's there organically, it's bioavailable to the plants for the plants to uptake as they need it. Whereas when you're providing synthetic nutrients, you're literally powerhousing nutrients right to the roots of the plant. In this instance, by providing a product like Oh-Tera, if you're starting with a good soil, and he says you only need to give it Oh-Tera a couple of times throughout the growing cycle in order to have a decent harvest, at that point, you've gone and taken that synthetic nutrient and blown it out of the water, making the product healthier for you, making the soil available for more plants and more types of plants to grow in without deficiencies, and providing you a better end product with less work.
Right. And we're looking good there. All right, guys. So I'm going to take a quick break here. We're going to get Timothy on the line. We're going to talk about some news. And again, the show's open for any comments and questions, guys. So feel free. I know we're all kind of going crazy, and now the world's been crazy, and the news has been sporadic and crazy. But there's been a couple big things going on in the cannabis industry, right? One of the most interesting things, I'm going to start off with this just because of the things going on in the world right now. And I'd love everybody's conversation about this and see how we feel about this. But 7-Eleven, I don't know if anybody's heard about 7-Eleven in the news lately. Now that we're having the riot issues and dispensaries are getting looted and businesses are getting shut down due to the COVID issue, 7-Eleven's going in and buying up all the dispensaries right now, and now they're kicking out all the dispensary owners. How do we feel about this, guys? Is this a stage for 7-Eleven to get into the dispensary business? Is this just a big cock block for 7-Eleven because they have issues for anything cannabis related? There's about 300,000 people in Oklahoma which would be affected by this, right? And then how do we recover that in Oklahoma? Because this is technically going to be happening in Oklahoma, right? 7-Eleven is a Dallas, Texas-based company right now. A lot of people think because, again, stigmas and stereotypes that it's an Indian-owned company. It's an American-owned company, guys. Tim, I just want to know how you felt about this, because this should have a rippling effect through the Oklahoma cannabis industry right now, which is an industry that's really booming, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's brand new, which they've got great medical laws because it was a ballot initiative. What blows my mind is why is 7-Eleven? The first thing I thought is, what, 7-Eleven? I used to go down to 7-Eleven and, buy slushies and cigarettes when I was in my, 18. It blew my mind. But, this is kind of where capitalism and activism has gone to. We've seen more and more things like the Christian backing of Hobby Lobby and Chick-fil-A and this becoming into the political scene. And I can't help but think, I personally, I have no idea where this is coming from. I don't know who is the CEO, who runs 7-Eleven, but obviously there is an issue. Thankfully, it has been, so far localized in Oklahoma, not nationwide.
Right.
Why Oklahoma? Why now? I think there's a lot of unanswered questions. But yeah, buying up properties, and that would give them the right to kick them out. Why are they making a real estate play? I don't know. It's funny. I did read about that this week, and I just haven't had time to kind of look into it any deeper. But there's got to be something behind it, because it just doesn't make a lot of sense.
According to the article, yeah, go Brandon.
There's something else that's really big about this whole 7-Eleven deal too. So yesterday they made an announcement. 7-Eleven did that. They've entered the crypto market through the XRP system, and they're now going to allow you to buy crypto at 7-Eleven. You'll be able to use cryptocurrency for your payments at 7-Eleven. And I mean, I didn't think you guys were fibbing, but I had to look this up on the internet because I can't believe that 7-Eleven is even. This is like, that's why I just looked this up, because I knew about the crypto news. And here it is, black and white. 7-Eleven trying to become one of the biggest dispensary deals in the United States.
And what the interesting part about that is, again, one of the first articles that was put out by Ganjapreneur this week, basically was like they were trying to basically get out. They don't want to support the cannabis industry. They didn't want to do the retail market. They don't want to do that. But the more you look into what's going on, it looks like they're almost staging themselves for the market, correct? And again, the CBD being the market that it is, could you blame them? You know what I mean? It's just something that came out of left field. And I saw that was in the Oklahoma market, which astonished me, because the revenue being derived right now in Oklahoma is out of control. They're one of the better markets that we have within the cannabis industry right now. And does this affect these dispensaries, or is it just a lease program? You know what I mean? Like, are these licenses, are they not basically established to a location more so than a company? Like, how does this affect the dispensary licenships there?
Hold up, and not just 7-Eleven. It's the 7-Eleven conglomerate. CVS, 7-Eleven, and Rite Aid. They own all of them. This is not a mistake, people. This is definitely not a mistake.
Well, I mean, so that's the interesting question of the day, right? And where do we go from there? Like, my concern is, does this affect the dispensary system in Oklahoma, because these are dispensary licensed businesses?
I think so. I mean, definitely. What do you think, Tim?
I mean, it's going to have an impact. I don't know the Oklahoma medical marijuana laws off the top of my head, other than the good parts, like no qualifying conditions, which is why it's a successful program.
Right.
So if you'd have to look at the nuances of it, it's hard to say. Finding a place that fits into compliance can be challenging. There's all sorts of regulations generally that need to be followed in order to open a dispensary. You have to make sure you have traffic patterns, you have to have parking, you have to have security. There's a lot of considerations that going into picking a location. I don't know how onerous Oklahoma's are. I would imagine that there's probably not a lot of landlords that's very supportive of the industry in Oklahoma either, not the most liberal progressive states. But the flip side of that is they've shown how much money can be made. And it's amazing how people's, reluctance about marijuana goes away real quick when the millions of dollars start rolling in. So that's going to influence it as well. Ultimately, now that we've seen that the program's successful, you would hope that these dispensary owners don't have as hard a time finding a new place to relocate to. Right. I still can't get over the whole 7-Eleven, their excuse that they just don't believe in this industry is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I mean, why would you spend millions of dollars to buy a few buildings and push out a few dispensaries in one state? Or wouldn't that money be more effective trying to put it forward, say, national campaign, and join the prohibitionists, and donate it to SAM where they can run around, and, if that was your goal, if that was your true motivations, not liking the industry, not liking marijuana, thinking it's money laundering and all blah, 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 there are a lot more effective uses of that money than pushing out a few Oklahoma medical dispensaries. There's something else going on. No, there's
we've seen Oklahoma's kind of like the hot point of the industry right now. Am I wrong? I mean, everybody wants to go there. Everybody's talking about Oklahoma, and they're, from my understanding,
program. But I mean, it's still in the middle of a red state where there isn't a strong, definitely not going to be going full adult use anytime soon. Highly unlikely. They tried to mess with the ballot initiative for the medical program bad enough. The governor hates it. The legislature hates it. It's not a very supportive state. The only reason it has it, again, is the ballot initiative. And, you know, you've got a majority of the people supporting it, but it's not a huge majority. You know, there's still very, very ardent prohibitionists. A lot of the religious right is very against it. They're still very strong. So, I mean, it just, yes, they've got a great medical program. Yes, it's a good example of what other states should do, but I wouldn't exactly say that, you know, Oklahoma is the center of the medical cannabis universe by any stretch. They just have some good laws right now. They're new as well. So it just doesn't make any sense. Again, like, why? Why buy, spend millions of dollars to buy real estate just to push a dispensary out?
I mean, it's not like they need more 7-Elevens in these towns either.
Right.
So, like, that's the question. Like, what's the plan? And like Brandon brings up a great point. If you're like, I want to say conspiracy theorist, but like, you know, you look at the Rite Aid brand that they're involved with and all the companies that they're associated with. Is just a push for, you know, these national chains where we're going to start seeing them to be, you know, selling these products on the shelves. Like we've seen like Rite Aids and things like that. They're talking about. I've seen a couple brands going to be launched here really soon where, you know, a lot of these, you know, our pharmaceutical side, you know, stores here, Brooks or whatnot, wherever you have it in your state, are going to be offering cannabis products, which is another. I mean, it's a huge step for us as far as getting our products out there. Now, you know, obviously there's markets and different things like that, like you said, legalized and are easier to work in, which bring me to the next point, because we're talking about, you know, the markets and the states and how they have it set up. Los Angeles, now, they just announced that they're looking into overhauling their whole license and social equity system, which, you know, I think there's not going to be one person that's going to complain about this, because we've seen nothing but a mess out of California, which I think surprises a lot of people, because when, you know, you talk to these you know, weed people or stoner people that are new to the, you know, they don't really know the politics of it. You know, the two places you'd think the weed's going to be the most friendliest and easiest to consume and find and use would be California, right? And like not Oklahoma, but Colorado, right? So Colorado, as we know, is they're great. They're very active in changing their laws and being a part of the system and working with the system. But then we've seen California just completely fuck it up, Tim, right?
Well, California stands alone. The fact pattern around California and how their regulated system came to be is unlike anything else, because, as we all know, California had a de facto legal system for the last 20 years. It was pretty much hands off. Their medical program, of which anybody could get a card at any time, was not regulated by the state. It was, for the most part, self-regulated. And you have two generations at this point that have created supply lines, that created, you know, outlets, that created their own, you know, regulatory system, and it worked. They figured out cash. They figured out how to make things work. And it worked. It did. It worked very well. There were problems. There were definitely problems. You know, illegal grows, pollution. You know, there was definitely issues that needed to be dealt with. But for the most part, you had a well-functioning quasi-legal system going on that 20 years. And then the state decided to place a regulatory scheme down. One that was incredibly expensive to get into compliance with, one that did not grandfather in much of anything. And you had all of a sudden people scrambling to try to get their existing operations, their existing supply chains, everything that was all set got thumped on its head, and tried to get into compliance with this ridiculous regulatory scheme that, you know, which it didn't work.
And
you
tax,
know, so certain people, they were able to afford to get into compliance, which is really, that's what it was. In order to be in full compliance, you needed to be able to pay for this and pay for that and pay for this and pay for that. And if you didn't have that money, if you were a regular, you know, mom and pop operation, which a lot of the operations in California were and are, you couldn't get into compliance. So now you have this system that some very well-funded, expensive players are in, but you have an underground market that's been so entrenched they're not going anywhere. You have hundreds of dispensaries that are unlicensed. You've got growers that are some in compliance, some aren't. They're fighting each other, and I mean, it's just chaos.
Then you have pricing, right?
Well, on top of that, just the last thing, you've got 3 layers of regulation. You've got state regulation, you've got city regulation, and you've got county regulation. So it's like you have to deal with, you know, local, county, and state. And sometimes those regulations are in complete conflict with one another. Then there's no synergy. They don't work together. They just each put their own regulatory scheme. So you can have something that's legal in one county, and then like 3 blocks away where the county line is, it's not legal. Your delivery drivers can do this here, but they can't do that there. But the state says they can't do it, And so it's practically impossible to be in compliance. I mean, California's shit show. It really, really is. And that is just a result of a very poor planning and a very poor implementation. I mean, that's what they wanted to put this protected structure in. They wanted to regulate. They wanted that state control. And they went about it about the worst way you possibly could have done it.
Right. Well, I mean, you hit on the points I was hoping to touch base on with like, and especially it's the county areas, which I don't think a lot of people realize, but there's a big chunk of California that are not cannabis friendly, right? You would think the whole state would be cannabis friendly. And then we talk about the delivery system, which was never implemented properly, but was there, but it was never set up. So like you have these guys getting pulled over and arrested in one county, and then they're allowed to go through other counties. So it really it's a nightmare to do business in cannabis. And I'm glad that you brought up the fact that their regulatory system is how old now, right? We were talking about how fucked up their regulatory system is. Well, let's take a look at it. You know what I mean? They're guerrilla policing the illegal grows right now. Like you said, these guys can't get in the business because it's just, we've seen it out here in mass. Like it's just millions of dollars before you can even step to the plate. These guys don't have that, right? But with this happening, though, I mean, this is something we definitely need in California. The market out there is one of our bigger markets in the country, as just being one of the biggest states we have. And everybody in the black market. So this is what kind of fuels our black market, isn't it? Like we have this conversation all the time. They have an 80% tax rate on cannabis out in California, right? How does that legal market even survive when you talk about the tax rates and things of that nature?
Okay. I mean, California is the prime example of just what overtaxation does. And not only overtaxation, but overtaxation when you have an already existing gray market that's already in place that already, again, has those supply lines I was talking about. They're still functioning. And you're going to say, all right, the legal pot's going to cost 60, 70, 80% more. It's just, again, it's brain dead thinking. It was a very, very poorly thought out and poorly implemented regulatory scheme. By all means, they should have had a progressive tax rate. Should have started the first year or two at 5%, and then slowly, as the legal market took a larger share, increase your tax rate accordingly. I mean, there's so many ways it could have been done in a much, much better fashion. Grandfathering in existing businesses who could prove a certain level of conformity and quality. I mean, certain things, again, there were parts of it that were necessary. Quality control is necessary. You need to be able to have a lab result. There needs to be some sort of regulation in terms of customer safety, product safety, testing for pesticides, testing for heavy metals. These are an important part of regulation. It was such a shining example of over-regulation. I mean, they try to micromanage every single aspect. And then again, delegating 3 levels of, let the state have some rules. They apply to everybody evenly. There's a cannabis control board who could be, petitioned when something's not working right, whose decision can be appealable. This is just a very basic, simple system that works a lot better than trying to statutorily dictate every single little microscopic aspect.
Right. Now, should a state like Texas or like California, and this is it's an interesting question, should they have different, like 3 different regulatory markets that work within themselves just due to population size and, the amount of grows and business that happen out there, instead of one just trying to cover the whole state? Like what would be the best approach for that you think?
I mean, to cover the whole state, what's covering the whole state? I think there should be one entity that's that's a rule-making authority. The rules you make are going to apply all over the state. You're talking about inspectors, or you're talking something about,
like basically licensing and stuff
divisions.
Like that.
You break a state up into, but as far as a regulatory body, I don't think you need multiple regulatory bodies throughout a state. I mean, the rules are the rules. They're going to apply equally in Dallas, they're going to have in Houston and Corpus Christi or whatever. Or, the rules are going to be the same.
I mean, I'm looking at
the less bureaucracy, the less amount of people involved in the decision making, the much easier a program is, because you don't need to convince 1 million people. You don't have 3 committees that are deciding one thing. You have a few people that you put forth your argument, they make their decision, and we're done.
And this is our big argument, and this is our big argument here, especially in Vermont, about getting our system up and running and our rec program legal, is the fact that we should have a council, right? It just makes that law change so much easier. And like we've had a bunch of people, between me, Tim, and Brandon, who've kind of fought us hands and knees, and we've had our discussions back and forth of the pros and cons of getting it to law, which I think it happens in a lot of states right now where they're looking at going legal. How do they approach the regulatory system, right? What people need to understand too is when we talk about these regulatory systems and we see it in mass, I mean, it might not be the fastest happening thing, but it's typically the easiest and for our best interest is setting up these councils, which they don't have out there, right? We are trying to establish one here.
California has a cannabis control board. It's just one cog in a huge bureaucracy, though. I mean, they have control over one, certain things, but it's not a standalone entity. They are incorporated into a bunch of other divisions of the state, which is where you get nothing getting accomplished, like anything in government. The more, the less people involved in the decision making, the faster the decision is going to be made. Right. And that's at the look. Even just in our own legislature, the Senate, smaller body, 35 people. They get things passed. They get things done. Mm-hmm. They've passed the tax and reg bill 4 years in a row. Smaller body. House of Representatives, 170. Now you've got the larger the body, the larger the amount of people, the longer it's going to take to make a decision. Mm-hmm. Right. We want as small as possible. You don't want one. You don't want 2. 5. That's about perfect.
That's a good number, man, because it keeps it hard to stack an opinion one way, which is what I mean. That's the first thing is we don't want everybody to have an overstacked opinion. But lately in politics, it seems like we have a right or a left, and that's it. You know what I mean? But again, the council is important when we talk about our S54 here in Vermont. So you guys Vermont tuned in. I'm glad that Tim brought up a couple of these things. Which leads me to my next question. So this is a message I got sent the other day, and it was basically about. Hey, ask Tim this. So it was basically a CBD company, right? Trying to find and establish banking, right? They want to be a distributor nationwide and set up for potentially a worldwide thing. So they're trying to think smartly, right? Basically, I'm trying to sum it up here real quick because it was a big conversation we had. But I want to bring it to your attention. It was basically, is it almost discriminatory at this point that they can't find banking through certain banking institutions, or because of the federal guidance? Because now that we've deregulated it, is it almost discriminatory for a bank to say no to a CBD business? We talk about like the Square programs, and we talk about all the banking programs and co-ops and things that we've seen, like, I was actually looking at Square today, and right in their contract of services, it says that they will not support any CBD. Now, is that the loop around that they get from a discriminatory kind of gesture? Because I mean, when you think about it, it kind of makes sense, right? Like, why would they discriminate from this company if it's federally technically? We have a farm bill, right?
So let's define some things here real quick. When we talk about discrimination. What really that means is a constitutional violation, a violation of somebody's constitutional rights to exist based on their race or religion. Recently, the Supreme Court upheld that you could not be discriminated against in a workplace for being GLBT, which is fantastic because up in last month, you could be fired for being gay legally. So that's discriminatory. Discrimination is an adverse effect based on a protected constitutional class, race, religion. These are the things that are discrimination applies to. Nobody has a fundamental right to get a bank account.
Right.
A bank, much like any private business, can decline business to anybody as long as it's not for one of those protected classes. So you couldn't say, I'm not going to give you a bank account because you're gay. I'm not going to give you a bank account because you're black or white or green. I'm not going to give you a bank account because I don't like your religious beliefs. That's not no bueno. I don't like your business. That's absolutely a right of the bank to decline to take an account of anybody who has a business that they're not thrilled with. You have no fundamental right to a bank account.
Right.
And even though the Farm Bill did legalize CBD, it legalized hemp-derived CBD, banks obviously have a very serious concern about, well, how happens under the 0.3% threshold? Or what happens if it's marijuana-derived CBD? We can't tell the difference. We don't know. We're not in the business of policing our clients, but if our client happens to screw up or happens to be lying, now we are committing a felony by banking them. So the risk that's still inherent, even though CBD is legal, has made a lot of banks, financial institutions in general, credit card processing, which is, we all know, is a nightmare, especially, a ton of our clients have problems with it. A lot of them just don't want to bother. They don't want to take the risk. Financial institutions are very conservative institutions. Bankers are very conservative. They do not want to risk all of their other depositors' accounts, their accreditation. They have regulators, and they don't want to be policing their clients. So that's why, even though it's legal, you're still seeing a huge reluctance on the behalf of quite a few institutions to deal with it. And that's going to continue until we see a change at the federal level. Until marijuana, cannabis containing more than 0.3% THC is no longer a Schedule 1 controlled substance, you're still going to see these problems.
Well, that was. I have two more questions on this system. Was once we do go federally legal, are we going to still see these problems? Which I bet you we will, because of just personal beliefs and things of that nature, like you said.
But they'll fade a lot quicker, and more people will get in.
Right. So I mean, the question was they used the word discrimination, so that's the reason why I wanted to use that, because now in our day and age, that's a strong, powerful word. And then I can understand the concern from people within the CBD industry going, "Hey, why can't I do this now? Because the Farm Bill, the this, or that. Why are we getting told we can't do this? Why are all of our processing payments not happening? And then if it's legal on the federal level, why, should do these banks? I mean, let me ask you a question: if somebody does get busted, right? Is our banks held liable? I mean, is this a real thing, or is it just the accounts get frozen? Like, how far deep does that?
It could go to their accreditation. The FDIC, which is the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which provides insurance for all banking institutions. If a bank is committing money laundering, which if they have a client has anything to do with anything that's above 0.3% THC on any level, they are now committing a federal felony. They are in violation of their FDIC guidelines. They're regulators. They could be shut down. All their depositors could lose their accounts. They could have assets seized. I mean, theoretically, what could happen, and it's never happened. You've never seen it, but what could happen?
Well, that was my question. Like the realistic of this, but it's there, right?
You're looking like you really would like to see that happen.
I'm sorry, Tim. It's just like, it's the total truth. I don't, it's absolutely the total truth, okay? I saw an article a week ago. California ship gets stopped with 200 tons of cocaine. Guess who owns it? JP Morgan Chase. It's a bank. Yep. It's their coke. They don't want to take the CBD money. No, they don't want the CBD money. They clearly want to put their money into hard drugs because
what you have to differentiate is JP Morgan, which is a financial investment firm of billions and billions, and day-to-day banks going in it. You don't go into a JP Morgan's branch and write a check and have a $500 checking account with them. No. And that's a huge difference. Yes, of course. They're financing. I mean, look at what we've seen with wars and overseas financing and billion. That's not anything about this. This is just your basic day-to-day banks. Even smaller banks like Brattleboro Savings and Loan, who very much want to get into this industry, very much support it, but are still very concerned about the potential impact on their business. And it's the banks that have their front-facing checking accounts for,
I'm in full agreement with you, but that still does not
it's hypocrisy
get away. It still doesn't get away from the fact that they found 200 tons of cocaine, and we're just like, you know what? We're going to sweep this under the rug.
No one's talking about it. That's the thing.
It's fine. We'll just let this disappear. Oops.
But the two.
Sorry, I opened that container.
No one's going to argue that.
Well, I'm glad you.
On the scenes of these big time money, of course. But the reality is, unfortunately, despite that, these are still the challenges that boots on the ground cannabis companies are facing. So the challenges that our clients are facing day to day. And it's important to understand why they're facing these, and just addressing the question of why they're having such a hard time. And is it discriminatory? Well, unfortunately, it's not a constitutional protected right in the terms of we could legally do something about it. It's us.
Why couldn't they sign like a release or a limited release form, or come up with some sort of liability release for the banking systems, that if you are a business that gets caught, is that something that would stand in federal court or no?
You can't waive criminal liability.
I don't know what you're doing.
Come on.
That doesn't work real well. I don't think the U.S. prosecutor is going to, the U.S. attorney is going to really care about that very much.
I want to see that
If
one in
your entity
court.
broke the law, your entity broke the law.
I'm
If
trying-
you
I'm
took
trying to
client,
ask, like,
by taking that customer, you are accepting any potential liability that flows to you for violating your rules by taking that customer.
Right.
Now
we had a quick question about the credit unions and how they do it. Explain real quick how the credit unions get away with it, or is it the same guidelines? They're just taking the risk.
It's the same guidelines, they're just taking the risk. They're smaller institutions. They have generally much smaller customer base. They're usually local. It's easier to know who you're banking with. You have less customers. You have it's a smaller system. And honestly, they're taking a little bit more of a risk. And thank God they are, because if it wasn't for the smaller kind of independent credit unions, we would have no banking. They're the ones that have provided it, and they have taken that risk. And so far, again, there have been no enforcement actions taken. And I think that's why you're seeing more and more. It's a very slow process until things change to the federal level. But you are seeing more. If you look at the stats, there are more banks in pre-COVID, but 2019, they were accepting business than they were in 2016, which is more than they were in 2014. So we are seeing more and more. We are seeing more normalization of the industry. It's a snail's crawl, but that will change. The Safe Banking Act, there's a lot of people in the financial industry that is looking at the Safe Banking Act very, very closely. We don't even need full legalization. If we got it from Congress that banking institutions were legally allowed to bank with state legal cannabis industry, no questions asked, and statutory law that they can point to, you'll see a whole bunch jump in. Because of course they want the money.
It's the money,
It's the risk. It is still, even though we haven't seen an enforcement, even though it's incredibly unlikely that it would happen, the reality is it could.
Right.
The Attorney General could turn around tomorrow and order his criminal division to start prosecuting banks that had anything to do with the adult use or, not medical, but adult use markets.
Right. And
there is a statute that protects medical right now. That's the
Right.
Roebuck-Flower Amendment that's gotten, so banks, credit unions that are banking dispensaries do have some legal protection, medical dispensaries. But there's no protection like that for adult use.
Now, there's been talk about removing that protection for our CBD industry from our administration at the moment.
There's no. Hold on. Just let me stop you there. That has nothing to do with CBD. CBD is legal. CBD is completely legal.
Right.
And that protection for the medical programs and state legal medical programs is what's known as a rider. It's not a law. It gets renewed every year in the budget. So it will have to be renewed again this year and next year and the following year. But it's been renewed every year since 2014 when it was originally passed. So, it's highly unlikely it's not going to be renewed. In fact, it's more likely that they'll eventually enshrine that in law.
Yeah.
Bureaucracy.
Unfortunately, again, we talk about it every week on the show, and to us, it probably sounds like we're beating a dead horse, but to the listeners, a lot of people don't understand. And I'm glad we talked about this banking issue because I get asked a lot of time, why is a local or this bank doing it and not that bank? If these are the issues that these guys are saying, well, it's a risk assessment, right? It's and I don't think a lot of people really realize how much liable, and I didn't, I'll be honest with you right now, I didn't realize that the bank could be held that deeply liable for a company that would fuck up on their own end. Like you said, the bankings aren't going to police what you're doing, right? They're going to trust that your money's clean, it's right, everything like that. And then when you, like you said, you get nailed with any sort of laundering charges, you're done, right? Pretty much.
There's something called the BSA, the Bank Secrecy Act, that was passed back a while ago, which puts onerous requirements on banks. For example, if they see suspicious activity, they have to file what's known as an SAR, the SAR, or a suspicious activity report. And that goes to FinCEN, the Department of the Treasury's Financial Crimes Division, who would enforce, who would go after this, who would prosecute. There's an entire division of the Department of Treasury that does nothing but look for financial crime. So banks have this, and they have this absolute responsibility where if they're even slightly suspicious or have even if a reasonable bank should have known that criminal activity was going on, they can be criminally liable. They can be civilly and criminally liable. And that means asset forfeiture. That means loss of accreditation and regulation. That means being shut down. It could mean a ton of things. It could mean the bank president being arrested and charged criminally. If it was shown that the board of directors of the bank had any knowledge of it, they could be charged criminally as well. And even if it's a 1% possibility of that happening, a lot of these banks, that's 1% too much.
1%. Thank you. 1.
Again, none of these are likely. We've never seen it happen. But it just takes the wrong person being appointed attorney general.
Right.
And it just takes a shift in the wind on the breeze of a political vendetta, and boom, it could. So that's why you're not seeing everybody. That's why you're seeing so many banks be so hesitant.
I know it's
CBD,
left field.
While it's legal, and while banks can bank it legally and have no problem with it, again, it's seen as too close for the taste of major financial institutions. They don't want to get bit. But that's changing more and more. We're seeing banks in Vermont, bank CBD now. That's becoming more normal. The 2018 Farm Bill was huge for a really big step for that portion of the industry. There are less and less problems. We're getting payment processing now. You talked about Square. They had the beta program for a year. Now it's no longer beta. Now it's just their program. Of course, they tack on a little extra charge for it, but that's huge. It's normalization. But you'll notice even them, Square will check your business's website to make sure you're not making medical claims. They will check to make sure that you're in compliance as much as possible. They actually have taken that role on. We've had several reports of people getting shut down by Square once they do a website audit. They're like, we're not going to continue processing until you change, take down the "this cures cancer" language, or this cures athlete's foot, or whatever medical claims they're making.
Right.
So in a way, they've had to play kind of cop.
Right. And we've seen them pull and freeze CBD accounts earlier on before some of these laws have passed. But you're right. I mean, people don't realize this, and this is an issue that a lot of people have. They start up with an easy company thinking that they can roll with it, but you got to do your research, because you don't want your funds frozen. You don't want to lose your banking, which would really affect your business.
And that's with the CBD. You're not breaking the law. As long as you're using a hemp-derived product, as long as your products have less than 0.3% THC, you don't have to worry about being arrested these days. You don't have to worry about cops kicking your door in. But you do have to worry about exactly that. Accounts being frozen, PayPal being frozen for 6 months. They're 180-day free. You've got a few clients suffer that. Getting shut down, having your website shut down, having, these are the things you have to worry about on top of potential FTC, which is Federal Trade Commission, who goes after false advertising, and FDA for medical claims.
Thank you. I was just going to say the FDA and the FTC have been actively going after people now, and now you're not getting written warnings anymore. We talked about this last week too. They're literally putting you right into a lawsuit, class action lawsuits right away now with no warning. So,
there's a warning. There's a warning. It's not with no warning. The FDA will come out they'll send a warning letter or two saying, "Hey, stop the shit." What we've seen is when that's just been ignored.
They ignore it. Yeah, I mean.
And then the FTC is their, is their guard dog, is their, bulldog, because they can't really prosecute under FDA regs right now because there are no regs, and they know it. The judge would throw the case out, but you guys got to finish your regulations before you can enforce them. So it's much easier just to kick the case to the FTC, who has full authority to go after any, false claims. So a misleading medical claim, while it is a violation of the FDA Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, it's also a violation of just regular basic fraud and false advertising laws. So the FTC has full authority to go after it for the exact same conduct, and they've got a crack team of prosecutors who that's all they ever do. So, at that point, that's why the two of them are working in conjunction on these cases, because the FDA is getting sick of it. They made it really clear. We're being cool about this.
They haven't.
We're telling you can't do this, but we're letting you do it. Just don't make medical claims. Don't do anything that's going to cause a sick person to forego medical treatment for your product. Because that's what their real concern is, that people are going to be harmed and not have legitimate medical treatment and medical care. Instead are going towards this thing which has not been demonstrated to provide any real medical care. Whether it does or not, that's the underlying concern of going after these health claims. They're not doing it to be assholes. They're not doing it because they don't like CBD. They do have a public safety,
responsibility
undertone for why it happens.
Right. So I know we're kind of getting short on time, guys, but like there was a lot of news I wanted to touch base with you. And this is the one that really kind of got me this week. That I really was been excited to talk to you about because A, I want to know how the hell they're pulling it off, and B, this is one of I think that one of the other biggest arguments with our whole cannabis industry is guns, right? Your right to own a gun, because I mean, as you're a business owner, you're a person, and most of the people in this cannabis industry and across the world at any sort of position have they own guns, right? Whether they use it for protection, whether they use it for sport, whether you use it for anything, right? There's millions of people with guns out there, right? So, I don't know if you know where I'm going with this, but in Illinois, there's been a report that says the State Rifle Association will allow you to have a gun if you have a medical card.
Right.
Does this open a big federal issue in that state with gun rights, or I mean, are we going to see a big issue out of this, or do you think we'll see other states follow it?
I mean, a state can do anything they want. They can say that we're not going to prosecute under state law. That's fine. Has nothing to do with feds. It's not going to affect federal law. U.S. Code still says if you're the user of a Schedule I controlled substance or firearm, you are guilty of a 10-year felony. End of story. And nothing the state is going to do changes that. So the state's not going to prosecute you. Vermont has pretty much taken that position.
Arizona's taken that position. So
most states are going to take that position. Absolutely. The feds.
I don't care.
You made the point I was hoping you're going to make. I mean, a lot of this is I'm trying to get you guys to make the points. Is that in our state, say we're in Vermont now, Brandon's in Arizona, right? When we see a case happen, and we can use a couple of our smaller cases here in Vermont, most recently, like our skate shop in Burlington or our head shops, where the government comes in, the feds or whoever, the police come in, they find a weapon, right? Now these weapons, licensed or not, whatever, it doesn't matter, right? That seems to automatically tick the federal case, right? So the state doesn't even have a chance to jump involved. Now I saw this article and I was like, this article can be very misleading and very damning to the people in Illinois, right? I mean, because like we just said, typically when you get caught with any sort of cannabis illegal activity, you have a gun at your level. Am I wrong?
I mean, as a lawyer, for a brief stint, I was a loss prevention officer at Walmart here in Vermont. And I remember once I stopped a guy for stealing lithium batteries, and he had a gun. Gun loaded on him, tucked in his back waistband. I took him in. We called the cops. Cops came, processed the shoplifting. They asked me how much were the batteries worth. At the time, the felony limit for shoplifting was $100. The batteries he'd taken were about 80. I told them that. They're like, oh, all right. So they go. They make the guy take the bullets out of his gun. They give him the gun. They give him the bullets in his other hand, and they're like, oh.
Have a nice day.
And I was like, I just arrested this guy. You just gave his gun back? They're like, yeah, because it's a misdemeanor. If it was a felony, if it had been over the $100, now that's a crime in Vermont. Committing a felony while in possession of a firearm. But you can commit a misdemeanor in the state of Vermont. Not all misdemeanors. If it's a violent offense, if it's domestic violence, that's a different thing. Yeah. But for the most part, misdemeanors, you can still have your gun. But Vermont also has some of the most liberal gun laws in the country. It's not like that in every other state, and that's going to vary wildly. But here in Vermont, man, you have a gun, you don't need, you can carry it concealed. There's no license, there's no permit, it's some of the loosest gun laws I've ever seen. Interestingly enough, some of the lowest amount of gun violence as well.
Yeah. That's how it is in Arizona. I think Arizona's way worse than Vermont is. Because Arizona's just constitutional carry. There's not one single gun law in the state of Arizona. It's literally the wild, wild west out here.
I mean, that's why we bring up this topic, because there's a hub on topic throughout the country with felonies and, just federal law, right? So again, when I see these articles, I go, it's almost not even worth printing at that point, because it's just very misleading. So I don't want a bunch of people out.
It's good to know. It's good to pay attention to, because it brings up the question, is this state law, is this federal law? And I'm talking about how liberal it is in, Vermont, but that does not supplant federal law.
Right.
If the feds want to come in now, but federal law is somewhat limited. That's the thing. They don't have all this encompassing law. The federal law is limited to a few things that, generally most police powers are left to the state constitutionally. that you can laugh at. According to our Constitution, the federal government should have nothing to do with drug prosecutions. Really, they shouldn't. But that's a whole different story. But what they do have, and felon in possession of a gun, firearm, and a user of a Schedule I controlled substance in possession of a firearm. Those are two very serious federal laws that could be enforced at any time. If the U.S. Attorney's Office in Burlington here from the District of Vermont really wanted to get the medical marijuana registry, they could. And if they wanted to go down and start issuing warrants for everybody on its house to see if they had a firearm, maybe they get it, maybe they don't. Maybe they need something else. Maybe they need at least like for a prior offense or something. I mean, who knows what the legal requirements would end up being. But the point is, if they wanted to bust people, they could. They could be going after every medical marijuana user for a firearm possession, especially in a state like Vermont where it's such a culture of hunters. Of course, they have no resources, they have no desire, there's no interest, and they're never going to do that.
Right.
There is no fear that they will ever. But again, much like the case, they could. The possibility exists, and that again for a lot of people, especially lifelong hunters and people who are very Second Amendment oriented in Vermont, people who feel very strongly about their firearm rights. That's a problem, and it should be, because that gives the government the authority basically to come in with you anytime they want, and that's when it would happen. If they wanted you for something else, if you had information they wanted, if they thought you committed another crime, if you got on their radar for whatever reason, and they wanted a little leverage on you, they wanted a little something out of you, whatever it was, that's the perfect type. That's the type of situation they would use.
Yep.
Not because they want to enforce the law, not because they think it's dangerous, but merely because it's a way to get you to do what they want to do.
Right. Exactly.
And that's and I've seen that happen before. I've seen that happen a handful of times, across this country, where that's just not. It's not a great situation, And this all goes to why we need to get cannabis off the CSA and the controlled substances list.
And I think I've touched on this previously, not today, but on a previous episode. My physician, when he gave me my medical recommendation, specifically said, do you have any guns? I said, well, yeah, Vermont, of course I do. I mean, come on. He says, get rid of them. He says, I'm going to give you this recommendation. Go ahead and get your card. He says, but now you're on a registry. If anybody has any reason whatsoever to suspect you for anything at all, look at Vermont Grow Coaching. It doesn't matter that everything that I do is completely 100% legal. I run a cannabis related business. Everybody's going to have their eye on that. So in that situation, he said, get rid of your guns. I said, what about the one that my mom bought me or that came from my grandfather? He says, doesn't matter. You want to keep them, sell them to somebody else who can hold on to them for you so that you can still use them or something, and they keep them. You can't have guns in your home anymore. You can't have guns at your business. You can't do that because that's a way for them to get in. That's a way for them to find other things to pin on you. That's a way for them, if they need to screw you over hard.
It's a serious problem.
Right. Well, I mean, and people have them and they don't think about it. And like in most states, you're licensed, your guns are licensed. So they literally have you already on their radar, right? I mean, it's very easy to just cross. And in some states they've outlawed this, and I don't know if they've done it in every state, but they've made it so they can't access your gun rights and hold you against it in your cannabis card right. Before the police had access to everybody who had a cannabis card in most states, and now we're starting to see states outlaw that. That way nobody has a target on their back. I mean, and I think that's a big worry for a lot of people in these states, just like our great growers, like Thomas was talking earlier when we were talking to him. We were talking about these guerrilla guys that are some of the best people in the industry that still do not want to be on video. They don't want their faces being known. They don't want, because they've been so embedded into the law side of everything. They've been busted. They've been, served jail time in most situations. In many situations, they're all felons, right? Because of the cannabis, right? So expungement acts are what we really need to have happen, right? And we're starting to see more and more states reach expungement acts even before legalization right now, right? There's a couple states this week that have announced they're going to expunge it, and we're in right now, being at the time and place that we're in with the riots and everything going on in the country, it's a great time to do this, right?
Absolutely, incredibly important.
Right, and we get people in serving, like, and I saw a great meme the other day, and I just want to bring this up, and basically the meme was saying that You know, right now in our country, we have people that can go to these high-end lounges, pick high-end weed, sit down, smoke it, enjoy themselves, listen to music, have some fun, right? In certain states, but the next state over, a guy serving jail time for an eighth of weed. That's where it really gets fucked up, right? You know what I mean? And whether it's an eighth of weed or not in some states, yeah, you literally serve jail time for an eighth of weed. People don't realize
Have a few priors, few prior offenses. A couple of years back, you were a stupid kid. You did a couple dumb things. Racked up a few priors. 6 or 7 years later, you get caught with an eighth in a couple of states. Damn straight, you go to jail. It wouldn't be, that saying, oh, it's not just pot. It's the fact you're a multiple offender. You're a past offense. Blah 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 blah. But no, it's the pot. And that's why we see some of the people who are serving life. It's not like they're serving life because that was their first offense and they got caught with a joint. It was because 3 strike laws. Where a ridiculously small amount of marijuana is considered a felony, and this was their 3rd strike. So that's what resulted in getting them there. I mean, that's a lot of what you see, and it was just the pot. No, it was the bust. Because if it wasn't for these ridiculous prohibitions on this plant, they would not be spending their life in jail. Now, add the added insult of now white people are making a bunch of money. And I hate to say it, but it's just about true that everybody who really is getting hammered on this was either African-American, Latino, they're black men. You don't see too many white people in jail for life for pot, but there are definitely a few dozen black men who are serving life as a result of marijuana.
Sadly, systematically, we see people. Yes, sadly, systematically, we see people that are white that are serving less time for murder and rape than we are for low-level cannabis violations.
Absolutely.
I guess you could say, right?
But that's why expungement is so important. That's why it almost needs to be a prerequisite. You can't pass legalization while there are still people suffering and being put in mental torture. As a result, it's just that you can't have that dynamic. That can't exist. It's atrocious. It's against everything we believe in.
Right.
So having that expungement, getting these laws changed, getting people out of jail, wiping their records, allowing them to move forward as they I think anybody who's been incarcerated for pot should be given freaking payment. I mean, they've had their lives ruined over nothing.
Well, that's where social equity really becomes. And we don't talk about this enough. And some states are really focused on it, and some states haven't even thought about it. But the social equity part of this whole thing should really be on the forefront of this conversation. Like you said, Tim, before we open up dispensaries and let companies come in and make millions of dollars, we have to get the people out of our prison systems that are there. And not only because it's low-level issues, but anyways, they're costing taxpayers money. So not only do we need them back in our workforce, stop spending we're wasting money, and we're really wrecking people's lives. You know what I mean? Because when they come out of jail, like you said, most of these guys have felonies on them, so they're felony wraps. So now you have this felony issue where you can't get a job.
Around your neck. Can't have access to the resources you need to succeed.
And you want to say, and you want to apologize to somebody who's been in the industry. Give them a social equity chance. Give them they don't have to accept it, they don't have to take it, but like, hey, like you said, hey, maybe it's too much, too little, I don't know, but like give them an opportunity to get back in the industry that threw them in jail, so they can get their lives back. And typically most of these guys.
This is an interesting point that was raised. I was last year at a convention we all go to, Cannabis Law Institute, and we were talking about social equity. It was kind of the major topic, and a lot of kind of back and forth, and what works, what hasn't worked, what has worked, which way is it heading. And one of the speakers had a really great point. And not all black and brown people want to sell pot. Not all black and brown people want to be in the industry. So what about them? What about the people who don't want a dispensary license or don't want to grow pot? So I think that really, for me, kind of opened my eyes to, oh, wow, that's just maybe one part of it. But social equity needs to be a larger encompassing concept. Have you been victimized by the war on drugs? Are you from an area that has been historically targeted on the war on drugs? Are you of a race or a religion or a group that has been targeted as a result of this? You want to go to college? You're going to college. We're paying for your college. You want a job training? We're going to pay for your job training. You want to get into the industry and get a dispensary license? You're going to be moved to the front of the line. Whatever it is that each of these individuals wants, their needs to be able to move forward, that should be provided. That should be provided by this industry. And that's the least I think that we could do. How do you impose that? How do you set that up to make sure that it's the people who need it the most that are getting what they need? How do you regulate it? How do you oversee that? I don't have an answer to. I think that's going to be something we're going to really need to work on as an industry over the next 5 years or so. I think that should be a priority. I think that we should constantly be evolving, implementing and evolving. Let's try this. Let's see this. We need to get people who have been affected in at the table, having these conversations. What is it that's going to work? And it needs to be done at a small local level. You're not going to pass one social equity, kind of concept that's going to work for Burlington, Vermont, and Los Angeles.
Right.
They're going to have to be different, but it needs to be a priority.
Right.
And I give Massachusetts credit, as screwed up as the implementation of their laws were. They really were the first state to really focus on that social equity component.
Mm-hmm.
Their first version of it kind of got screwed up. A lot of people took advantage of it, but there was also a lot learned from that. And now, they're evolving, and Illinois has taken the model from Massachusetts, has made a lot of changes in what didn't work, and has now implemented a, pretty fairly extensive social equity program. We're going to see how that works. And the next state should take what works from that and make the modification it needs. But this needs to be now a part of any adult use legislation. And I think, it's a very strong feeling about that throughout the industry. I haven't heard anybody say no to social equity. Everybody understands it needs to happen.
Right.
It's just a question of how to make it happen and how to make it happen
Right.
effectively for everyone who needs it.
Right, and not be the last thing that we focus on either. You know what I mean? Like you said, it needs to be at the forefront of everything, even before you talk about the dispensary licenseships and everything else like that. Like, make it available to these people, right? And then I think you see an industry that's going to be a lot happier. But first and foremost, right, expungements, man. Like, we get people again, they're still getting arrested. They're still getting arrested. I've seen somebody get arrested for 2/8 the other day and is facing felony charges. I'm going, where in the nation right now are we doing this, right?
It's terrifying. And, I wouldn't want to be in Georgia, I'd be breaking the law right now, I'd be disbarred.
Yeah, right. Technically, yes. Unfortunately, it's a sad state of the affairs we have in America right now. And globally, we see these issues everywhere. You know what I mean? Where different areas and provinces and countries and states all want to do their own different thing. We see things happening quickly. We see things not happening very quickly. But at the end of the day, the cannabis industry is still, I believe, a thriving industry.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing money being made hand over fist, and even breaking records, even through the COVID-19 issues. Legalization on a federal level seems to be turning into a 2022 issue. It looks like I've seen some rumors of, which is, being in the current state. I'm sure the riots haven't had any have a huge effect on that. The COVID-19's had a huge effect on that. And right now, in my opinion, getting the riots and all these other racial issues.
The riots. There were 2 days of rioting in a few cities. It wasn't that widespread. There were protests. Riots weren't that big a deal. It was making it sound like we had months of chaos, dude.
Well, I mean, we still have. I mean, I don't want to say riots because I want to classify as riots, but we still having protests going on. So it's still something that's
still some asshole
focus. Right, and unfortunately, our law.
I just want to put, not like the streets are burning.
No, it's definitely gotten better. It's toned down now, but it's still happening. So there's a lot of focus still in that area. Is what I'm trying to point out.
Yeah, no, of course,
it hasn't gone away.
Through cultural change shift, but that's why it makes it impossible to now even hazard a guess. I mean, Christ, we don't even know what the hell's going to be happening in 6 months with this damn pandemic. Everyone said it was going to go away during the summer. Everyone said the heat was going to make it go away. Well, yesterday we had more cases than we did in April. So, it's just impossible to tell what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. And that's unfortunate for our industry, but I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I don't think anything's going to be hurt by it. I mean, we're seeing big corporations have issues, but like we talked about, they're more self-endured or self-inflicted than anything. So don't be afraid to keep your business and keep your business hopes alive. Right now, with the riot in the dispensaries, that's a huge issue for everybody, I think, in our industry, because that's the last thing we want to see is helpful companies be in the crosshairs of all this stuff, right? And it's going to take a toll on our industry. So let's be smart about stuff. But other than that, dude, I think that's the time we got for today, guys. Tim, I appreciate those great coverage of the news this week. A lot of cool things happening. Like we said, the 7-Eleven was a surprise one, the gun ones. And it's a lot of stuff we may repeat a lot of times, but we need to let people know, remind people, and then not let people get lost in the headline, which is the biggest thing that we find in any news nowadays is everybody gets lost in the headline. There's clickbait out there. Dude, I can't tell you how many people send me information they made. Like I stopped. We discussed a while ago. Every time you know how many bills get proposed on any sort of level of government that we could literally report on every day, but don't make it anywhere. You know what I mean? Whether great,
Right.
bad, ugly, or different. Look at our states. Look at every state. How many bills did you guys propose before they legalize one? You know what I mean? So until we get to a certain place, to us, it's a lot of well wishing going on. You know what I mean? But
But a lot of it's fun to chat about.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Because some of the proposals have been really great. You know what I mean? Some of the things we're all like, yeah, no, at all. Let's do it. You know what I mean? But other than that, guys, keep your fingers crossed. Keep fighting. Keep bugging your state officials. Keep bugging the federal officials. The battle's still going. It hasn't stopped. We're not legalized. And do your research on a lot of these things. For that, we're out. I think
Go
next
on, everybody. See you guys
we have
next
great
week.
shows. We have a bunch of great shows lined up, guys.
Bye, everybody.
I believe next week we have the Matt Bubba Burger coming on. After that, we have a list of good things, guys. So go right to our Facebook pages, check out our events. We're going to get all of our things out here quickly. And we'll see you guys next week. I appreciate you guys being on the show. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, other Thomas, who probably jumped off to do some work. We really appreciate him. So that was Thomas Popke from Oh-Tera Organics, guys, with a great new line of microbial products for you guys. So check him out. Give him a ring. He wants to hear from you guys. He'd love to get you some guys testing. So great show from him. If you guys missed the earlier part of it and you had never heard of a micro before, go back, because both Thomases really educate us really well today. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Thomases. Thank you, Brandons. Peace out. We'll see you next week.
Yeah.